Um.
Oh. Alright, I fucking look ridiculous. How do I join
No.
video?
Watch him like.
I fucking
God
knew
damn
it.
That's what I was afraid of.
I was
I
on a
didn't
side
want
of
you
it
to
looks.
see them.
It looks
I already
fucking
knew
amazing on
about them.
Rust. It looks amazing on Rust. Oh my
It looks
god.
even better on Rust. Where fucking are these?
This one. Ugh, fucking Christ.
Everything fucking lags. You can actually be Kilbert in this game now. Side note.
Where's it? I mean, is there a vape?
I mean, once H3 comes out, definitely. Fucking
God.
Rust looks like an old homeless man.
Hipster. Where's two?
That's also
Everyone
not
wear
how
long
you wear a
ones.
beanie like that. Side
Yeah, it's
note.
not.
I'm gonna get Matt over back.
Oh. We're gonna do a small
forgot
heist
all of my
to warm me up,
maps. I mean,
and
I
also
haven't played
to
this
also
game in several
just so I
months.
can fucking get 20 more kills and not have to fucking go through the whole game with this SMG.
I really forgot all of my masks. On a side note, this game is very quiet. I can't hear shit. Okay. Sound. Crank that shit up. Crank that shit up.
It's the one no more.
Crew management. What the fuck? What is this?
Yep, it's bots.
Okay, you still can't change your fucking character in a lobby.
Nope, but Career Management lets you change what masks your characters wear and what guns they use. And what the character there is.
Alright, I guess I'm doing something with this.
I already did. What?
Oh, I'm just looking at materials. Whenever you put your material on this thing, it makes it look like it's animated.
Is your heart big?
My heart's big!
To eat children.
Quick up. Nice with this thing, man. Oh, that's great.
It's a me. What are we doing?
Hold on, I'm making it a mess.
We're doing a single jewelry store, diamond store, just so I can
Should I
get
bring
kills.
the drill?
No, I think it's fine.
Is there anything to drill?
I don't think so. There might be an ATM or two, but I don't think so. Actually, there might be a
If there's
safe.
an ATM or two, fuck it, I'll bring it. I have a fucking separate light machine gun.
Fair enough. Rust. Why does Rust look like he's had a stroke?
I mean, it's Ron Perlman. What do you expect?
I still have.
Ron Perlman in his entirety looks like he just has a stroke.
I just like
note,
how.
I'm
I'm still
really
trying to
hoping-
come to terms with the fact that.
He's gonna run for president?
Sorry?
Yeah, Ron Perlman said he's gonna run for president in 2020.
No?
I'm dead fucking
I'll vote
serious, by the way. I'm definitely voting for that motherfucker.
Jamal, please wear the long beanie.
Oh, is that what we're actually wearing?
Just one heist is all I want.
If you guys can make him solid gold, please.
Solid gold, you say?
Mm-hmm.
I cannot afford that, I don't think.
Damn it.
Can
I'll
I do
do it.
silver?
Hey, you do silver. I'll do
Actually, can I just make mine entirely made out of burnt toast? I could do that.
Yeah.
Alright, sorry, it's not toast, it's actually burnt coal. But there you go. I look like I have shit on my head.
I'm doing silver.
I should probably
There you go.
actually look at my actual stats and shit, because I have absolutely
Look at Jimmy
no
Neutron.
idea what the hell I have. Oh, I think I almost came in here with stealth. Is this stealth?
Oh!
Oh no, this is
That's
my
something-
dodge build. Okay. Because I'm still using grinder. Is that still overpowered or is that nerfed?
It's a good
Brandon's
app.
been shit for a long time.
Well, fuck it, I'm running it for this game.
I mean, it's better than fucking Crew Chief.
What? Oh, okay, I was about to say, I have all the DLCs in this game. How am I still missing shit?
Please.
Let's go! Ah. Oh. Payday trivia.
Bonnie isn't good with computers.
Why do I care about this? Aldstone was once married, but it didn't end happily. You'll find out why. Stealth is an option. Oh yeah, I forgot Bane is long-haired. Oh, alright, I'm setting the same as host. Because I almost had the
Nice.
game running at just straight fucking don't act dumb. Don't act dumb! Don't act dumb!
What?
Oh,
I'm eating an apple. Hang on.
fine, take it down. Who came in my Cheerios?
Why do I have a boner?
Okay.
Nothing warranted
Always got a
this.
fucking boner.
Is you ready?
Random
Is you,
boners a lot, man.
is you have erectile function?
Are we gonna ready up, or are we just is this the
Hang
video
on!
game? Is
He's
this,
eating
is this
apples.
the video game?
Look at this fucking goddamn part from the podcast. Podcast.
Oh my god, this is apple is so fucking good.
I think you eating this apple is what's giving me the boner.
Oh,
You're just
Oh,
Jamal's ASMR.
Like, I don't get it. Here, I'm gonna hit my boner against my desk. You ready?
oh god, nail, nail.
Kid, seriously,
Boner
don't.
pills.
Please don't. This is fucking wrong.
I'm
Just
taking-
gonna get splintered all over it, Onion.
What the fuck? I had a Pepsi. Where did I put it?
It's in my dick.
Did I drink it all?
Am I a glutton? I don't even
Guess
know.
I did. Oh, this video game's so much fun.
Almost done.
Jamal, I want you to imagine vaping into an apple.
I've done that before.
Alright, get ready. Get me the
You can make
We
it.
play on overkill. That's gross. We play on fucking one down.
Get into the store. You know what to do.
Remember when we used to be good at this game? I love that animation, by the way.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Damn it, that's the alarm. Stay frosty and get ready.
Also, my fucking mouse sensitivity is way too high.
No! My bag, please.
We'll be back.
A horizontal look sensitivity? Okay, there we go. I haven't
So why don't
played this
sciences?
video game in several months.
Wait, didn't put on his fucking mask. The fuck? He did. He doesn't. Oh, he fucking
Remember,
put
he
the
wears
fucking
glasses.
hat on, didn't he?
His
I know, I threw
default
a fucking-
mask. Wait, bots
I
can pick
threw
up
fucking
bags
what's it
now?
called? Yeah, I threw it to him. Yeah.
What? Okay.
He threw
Got a
bags at him. They
couple
picked
bags
him up.
over here.
How do I get out camera?
You're Hey, you're in there. Okay, don't
Okay,
open
good,
that door
I'm
over there.
still
Don't open this door.
I
Do not.
know I played this video game
I was telling Terry.
before.
Yeah, don't do it.
I have played this game before.
Also, I love how every single time I play this game, I have to fix my settings.
I really do like this game. I fucking
Dude,
forgot
I
how much
love
fun
this
it is.
game. It's just kind of shitty that the game's awful.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, I think I made my mouse needs to be a little bit too small. What?
Alright, but I turret's up.
Who said that?
The guy who nuts his captain.
But the captain's not here.
Yeah, but the turret's here. There's a call up right now.
Okay. Is that a fucking medi? Oh wait, they opened up the door.
You can do that.
Apparently.
Oh, that's shitty.
Oh, hey,
I'll
look.
buy a flash nuke you can shoot now.
Yeah, no. Is there an actual physical? Oh hey.
Have we found anything that we need to use the drill on yet?
I've got one back here. Yes. Wait, drill or fucking saw?
Fucking saw, yeah.
No. There's probably an ATM in the other building. Oh man, why am I getting random lag spikes? Oh no! Okay, I was wondering. I forgot about cloakers. Suck my fat dick, cloaker. I really forgot
love
about
both.
cloakers.
Amazing.
And I
Even
know
though
what
your
you're
alarm's
thinking.
so
Yeah, that's still my alarm clock. I just kind of, you know, changed what I think about that sound. Now it's just what I listen to when I wake up.
And burn the bags up here.
Somebody should take care of that fucking
Good luck with that.
turret.
Yeah.
Got it.
There's ammo on the
I'm
floor.
I'm about to kill a whole bunch of us civilians.
Where's that package? Also, where do we take the
We're,
valuables?
we're holding out.
Why are you throwing these up here?
Because the thing's up there. We guys fucking. I guess we can stash them here, but the door's right there. Come on,
Oh, man, I just didn't know what the fuck. Remember, I haven't played this
I'm
game
going
in
down.
fucking months, dude. And even then, this isn't Hoxie Toxie. Do I have Inspire? I have Inspire. It's a fucking medi. Oh. Get the fuck up! Get the fuck up!
It's not sting anymore.
Fuck up!
Just pick me up. If it doesn't work the first, remember, they changed that.
I don't fucking pay attention to the goddamn chat logs for this game, noob. The
Basically, what
patch
happened
notes,
is
rather, not the chat logs.
it's a guaranteed no matter what now. There's a cooldown.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, guys, get the bags to the van.
I know. I mean, it's half the battle.
Tactical awareness at all times.
Oh shit, I'm down.
Don't worry, Scarence, I'll save you.
Great, keep it coming.
Oh, fuck it. Oh, I forgot something I really dislike about this game.
The game?
No, the fact that if you have a bag on your shoulder, it makes the view slightly askew.
Oh
I'll
yeah.
take that.
Where? Because, hold on. I'm currently getting fucked. Wait, did I just... What? Alright. I was, like, eating shit over there, and I put down a first aid kit, and I kind of just absorbed it.
Yeah, it's a skill you can get.
Oh, okay. I don't remember that before, but... Okay, if you insist. Are pistols still ridiculously overpowered?
Kind of.
What got down?
I'm going down. Coming to you guys, though. Book's gone. Oh, I'm going down again, goddammit. Fuck. I have 60% chance to dodge, I'm getting done.
Oh fuck.
Oh, I'm behind you.
The fucking medi!
It's a medi.
Oh, shit, okay. I
Come
got
on.
a fucking... Hello.
I'm dead.
Do we have all the bags?
Oh, wait,
Not
you
even
went
close.
down?
I said I was going down.
You didn't fucking say that!
Yeah, you
It's not
did.
my kid, Jamal.
I did
I'm
not
gone.
hear you say. Oh shit, there's a dozer. Okay. Don't worry. I think we got. Okay, no, we don't have a hostage. I swear to God, you did not fucking say I'm going down.
You did.
I swear to God, I did not hear that.
That's fine.
Well, I guess in this time frame I can fix my sound effects and shit. Never have the music louder than the actual game, Lillian.
I'll tell you what, I'm gonna turn around.
Nah, he's dead.
I blame Jamal. Okay, Joe, because if you haven't lost a
Maybe
single
if
one,
you
so now
didn't
he's...
suck and didn't go down all the time,
I'm joking, I'm kidding. It's
fuck
joking.
you.
No! How the hell did this happen?
Wow, you guys suck.
Yeah, fuck that. You want better highs?
Put it on easy.
I got my gun.
Put it on easy.
Hold on a second.
I think I'm gonna go back to my shotgun build.
Shotguns are awful in this game.
Actually, maybe you're awful.
They've actually gotten better.
Oh, I just remember shotguns being virtually useless in this game.
Just like you, Jamal.
Yeah, I guess I'll use my classic. I fucking don't remember anything about this game.
Yeah, it took me a bit.
Like, I forgot my go-to shits. Is this my good one? I really can't remember.
Do you like my long shotgun?
Do you like my wiener?
Look how long my shotgun is.
Look at my wiener. How the fuck does
It's
this
too small, I
item
can't
have
see.
so much? Oh, okay, that might be it. That might be it. Shots fired! There we go, that's the fucking thing I wanted. And then, Raid World War II. Oh, that's cool. Just kidding, it's dumb. Look, you could be Roadhog. What's the meta melee weapon right now? Is it still the katana?
Fucking, no, it's the brass knuckles. No, electrical.
Brass knuckles.
The electrical brass knuckles.
Like the original ones?
No, the electrical ones, the one that you can stun people with.
Where the fuck are those at? Oh. These things look stupid, but okay.
They're basically a taser.
But there's an actual taser item.
I mean, yeah, but these punch faster.
What about explosives? Is there like a meta for that right now?
I don't know. That might be actually
What the fuck is this?
Sonic.
Why is there a little Russian doll grenade?
Yeah, it's just a grenade reskin. That's what I use.
Alright, that's what I'm gonna use then.
No.
Blah, blah, blah.
I'm looking for the ability that gives me more
Here, I'll be Daft Punk.
Crouch Punk.
It's your boy, Craft Punk. Waiting for the video game.
1 second.
Waiting
One
for
second.
the video game.
How do you increase the ammo of the fucking thing?
Increase the ammo with what?
Of like your main like AR.
And for what gun?
Well, it's I'm using for the Glant rifle. Basically the fucking M1 Grand.
If you go into
It's a perk.
I'm looking for the perks.
Yeah.
Right?
if you go into Tactician and go down the oppressor tree, I think yeah, Surefire.
Look at that. Fuck. Second. I am a god. I just got. I'm a height. I'm a healer dank damage dealer. What the fuck? I just got an achievement.
That means you have things built in every area.
How did I never get that achievement until now?
Yeah, probably because you use the most overpowered meta shit.
Fair enough.
Net deck in the video game.
Well, this look like a face of someone who like fucking meta decks.
I'd say so, yeah.
Okay. 'Cause you're right. You fuck.
I like how, so my achievements for you gotta start somewhere all the way until most wanted. You know, the experience ones.
Yeah.
January 17th, 2015, reached level 5 at 10:37 p.m. January 17th, 2015 at 11:44 p.m. That's like what? 50 minutes? I hit level 10. January 18th, 2015 at 11:26 p.m. reached level 25. Level 50, January 20th, 2015, 9:03 p.m. Reached level 75, March 20th, 2015, 2:05 a.m. Reached level 100, March 31st, 2015, 1:15 a.m.
So what map do you want to do?
Fuck you.
Okay, we're
Pick
gonna do a
a
new one.
good one.
Oh, I have the
Big
undercover shit.
oil.
How about we don't?
Big oil.
I really
I
put
have a
oil
good
in my
idea.
asshole.
Why don't you let me host? Because, I have all of the DLCs.
Do it then.
Alright, goodbye.
Slut. Fuck, good. He's gone then. Okay, let's go.
I also want to switch my character. Who do I want to be?
Who are you?
I'm surprised Rear hasn't joined us though.
There's
You allowed in my
all
game.
day Monopoly Man.
Mm.
Jamal, are you drinking tonight?
No.
He's drinking his sorrows away.
Drinking Dayquil, which it says specifically not to mix with alcoholic beverages.
Do it. Is it Dayquil or Nyquil?
Dayquil.
Good. I did drink like a fuck ton of Nyquil.
Yeah, I did.
You gonna be smurfing?
Do I want to play as Scarface or Mexican Man?
Scar.
Mexican.
Scarf.
Scar Mexican Man. I'm gonna be Mexican Man. Now what map, what mask?
That one.
That's what he looks like? Oh no.
Recovery straight up.
Oh my god. I did not know what this man looked like. In that case, let's... There we go.
Cover the butterface up.
Nah. How do I make a lobby again? Oh yeah, try that. Contract broker.
Make sure it's friends only.
What thing
Or I'll
do you
stop
guys
fucking kill
want?
you.
What does UE
Think
mean?
you're UE means
The fuck
Ultimate
does
Edition?
that mean?
Ultimate Edition.
What does that mean? Oh wait, the heist. Or the DLC, right. I
Did
forgot
you buy
they-
the thing?
Forgot they changed that.
Yeah, you bought that, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean it was 99 cents.
Mine's $32.
Nice
Remember,
10.
because they changed it so that way the only way you can get the DLCs now is if you buy the Ultimate Edition. So I figured I might as well just buy it because it's 99 cents for the last DLC I don't have.
It's golden chain mask.
We're gonna do Hoxton Breakout?
We'll just get the set up.
And then Terry fucking shot himself. The
What
end.
are we doing?
I know.
What the fuck?
Hoxton Breakout. Which one?
The one that
The
we
one
did
that
a lot.
Fruit hates.
The one that we over and over and over and over and over and over and over.
Yeah, pretty
Yes.
You could try a new one.
much. I wish there was a random button.
There is. So a crime spree.
What is a crime spree exactly?
I don't know. Try it out. Let's try it. Come on.
How do you start that?
Go to CrimeNet and the fucking yellow crime spree button.
Oh, okay. A crime spree is an endless series of randomly selected heists. Okay, fuck it. Yeah, friends only.
And start level 0 because I don't know how hard it gets.
I mean, I kind of have to be level 0.
Yeah, you can use start level 20. Level 40, sorry.
Okay. All right, join me.
See how hard it's gonna be, because I have no idea how hard it's gonna be. No crime spree progress. Start your own crime spree to
Do I
gain
have a
rewards.
lazy eye?
1 second, Terry. We have to leave and make our own crime spree, and then like join them, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just go to crime sprees to hit 0,
Wait, what?
and then go to CrimeNet, and then you see the yellow button that says crime spree.
Huh?
Click that, and then start, and then hit the start crime spree with like no cost, which is gonna be a 0.
Or just accept it?
Yes. And then you can leave this lobby and join Jamal's. Oh god.
I don't know what this mask is, but I love it.
What exactly?
What's this? What's that?
What's up? Alright, do you guys have the same things at the bottom that I do?
1 second.
Because I have to choose from Transport Park, Counterfeit, and Go Bank.
Go bank.
You don't want to play Go Bank?
Fuck it, let's do a go back. I've done it well. Well, you want the stealth, do you?
No. But you do remember that,
Yeah, no, oh, you're right.
yeah. I don't think we want to play Go Bank.
Oh, I mean...
Oh, dude, I could be a Nazi.
They're a little bit too excited there.
That's like a legitimate Nazi hat.
What is?
Jamal, I'll give you the fucking honors of picking one. Pick one that you don't think we're gonna get angry at. Fuck it, let's do Go Bank, fuck it. Let's start us off fucking right.
Go Bank. Are you guys ready?
Hang on. Hang on.
The fuck is that?
That was me killing myself. I like how much higher level I am than you should.
Well, you also solo queue this game, I don't.
Yeah.
Is that a Trump mask?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh wait, I
The
have the mega version.
45th.
Where's the there we
Yeah, his name's God. It's the God Emperor, by the way.
God Emperor.
God Emperor and the 40.
Is this the one that makes the particle effects for various swear words come up?
Oh no.
Forgot about yours.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yep, there it is.
Guys, I think Jacket's evolving.
Oh, this is really cool. What the fuck is that? Problem this mask?
Oh, I can get out mine. Where is it? Where is broken video card? There it is.
Classic. Let's go. Jesus Christ.
Oh, we go in classics like from the video or the time lapse video.
Okay, let's go.
Okay, so
You passed
there
it.
we go.
There you go.
You guys ready? You guys ready to get angry at video games?
Let's go. I wonder how hard it's gonna be. John Wick is back. He's
Sydney's
definitely
old
back.
street gang, the Dingoes. That's judgmental.
Gauge boosts. Ammo, pilfer, damage dodger.
Not a big branch, but I've learned that the vault is temporarily holding
I feel like
steady.
Lockpicker King is something you want. I'll pick locks for the faster.
Anyway, you know
I'll
how
play.
to
Okay, you click it. If you click it, it tells you what it is.
silent or unleash hell. Either way,
Okay.
I got a little idea for how to lift the money out of there. You'll see
Self
what I
healer
mean.
players
Guys, don't
recover some
forget to
health
set
from
it the
killing
same
enemies.
as host.
Oh, I guess we
boy.
can only get one. Yeah, well,
You get two.
I screwed it up.
You can get two. So what I'm gonna
Don't
pick is
forget to set it to same as host.
I did.
I can't even get any of these.
Oh,
'cause I
dude,
don't have
wrong.
enough
That's
concentration.
fucking stupid. Players gain invulnerability for 5 seconds after killing an enemy, a special enemy with a melee weapon, aka almost never.
Is everybody ready? If so, press the ready button.
Fuck yeah. Might as well. I've said bad to be.
It's really.
Of course you fucking did.
I actually unironically like this song.
There will be a couple of
You ever play
cars
Counter-Strike, Terry?
in the trunk of the cars. They'll have
No.
silent access to the vault, where you can
This is meant for you then. I just try to fucking go up the ladder like with like left, like goddamn speed ladder.
I mean, you can't even go up the ladder to begin with in case you know. Remember, don't act suspicious.
So,
Right.
yeah, fuck it. Works on
Don't act suspicious.
Well, they acted suspicious, guys.
Ooh, damn, they hit like a truck. Okay, this is empty.
What the fuck? Slow motion hair twirling fucking everywhere.
Crap, that's the alarm.
That's the alarm.
Oh, I killed a civilian.
Well, there's a civvy, dude.
I shot a window to get out. My bad. So, I don't think I have any technician skills, so somebody else put together the thing.
I don't think any of us do, honestly.
I have a few.
We don't.
Stay where you are.
Eh, fuck it.
This is about to get really scary.
It's about to get really bad.
And remember to keep the cops off it.
Counter-Strike.
Extreme
Oh.
edition. I just tried to put down a spray.
Police.
Don't forget to get your gauge pad.
secured.
Wait, is that my voice?
Okay, I've got that secured. Ding 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 ding.
You're a horrible man.
Ding 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 ding.
Wait, do I still
I
have
think
the...
you,
Oh shit, I don't think I have that mod installed anymore.
the fucking loser.
Unless it's just set to a button that I don't...
Stay on the ground or I'll destroy you.
Oh, that's a grenade. Oh, fuck. Okay. There goes a JAMO grenade. Fucking... This character sounds like Ryuk.
Drill's almost done.
It's Scarface, Rurik.
Scarface.
No, it's
That sounds-
Mexican, man.
Oh, never mind.
He just said shield and it sounded like Ryuk saying shield. Can some... Okay, there we go.
The pilot is on his way. He's going to pick up the case from the roof.
Those are coming out the back.
Okay, ladders do not work in this game. I remember now. I like this map a lot better in Counter-Strike.
Oh my god, this is Nigel. Somebody have first aid kits?
I've got first aids, yeah.
You want to spice the room with them a little bit?
Yeah, hold on.
I hate you so much. I'm going down.
Drop off the pieces for a skyhook. You gotta bolt together an aluminum cage. Load it and then set up a cable on a balloon.
Oh, bias coming.
Plane flies right over, grabs the cable, and whoosh, off it goes.
Stand up and fight.
Gun car.
I got it, come on. Then you're actually patching them.
I guess I do have some technician skills. After all, that's what I used to mean. Scaren's the spooky boy.
Oh, there's a fucking dozer here.
I'm up.
Oh. Here, like there's another one there. I might need some help.
I got you. I can only babysit so many of you, though. Oh no! Fucking, I cannot reload fast enough.
What difficulty is this on? God damn.
It's just no difficulty. It's just fucking. We don't know. We know that's for us. We still do to all of us.
It like has its own difficulty. I'm playing this like I'm playing Counter-Strike. Don't act dumb. I love this song so much. Although I do gotta say, the only version of the
Ladies
song
and
I'm
gentlemen.
listening to is the Silver Gunner version. So I keep forgetting what sounds are actually in this and what aren't.
Fucking this turret, oh my god. God damn it.
I'm sorry, I forgot that was a
That was my fault. I'm about to go down, it's a fucking
Call your
one.
hits. Call your hits.
Alright, Noob slurped up all the ammo.
And
I got
next
more
one.
back here.
Don't. I got it.
I was about to go down. And Mega's not.
Alright, I don't think I have that perk. Or if that even is a perk. I remember
What
being
the
able to meleeing drills to make them work again. There's a cloaker.
Oh, I got killed by a bitch boy. Splinter Cell, help me.
You got killed by my alarm clock. Hey, on the thing! And I did a daily. Don't.
Oh, remember how you do
Behind
this?
the counter if anybody.
Don't defeat.
What am I doing? Oh, hey there.
Oh. Fuck.
Also, I want to point out the sniper was shooting me in the rhythm of the song.
Tough fight, huh? Well, you
Come
on top, and that's the important thing. Now pat yourself
on, throw him up there.
Good, good.
The fact that that thing just repairs itself is absolute bullshit.
Yeah. That's what they did to make EMCs useful in loud heists. Thank you, Reark.
Woo!
That's perfect. The cage is
Right now, Reark is just our fucking vein.
Basically.
Also, I just noticed it's snowing on this map.
Yeah, Terry, it only does it 3 times and it stops, so if you can destroy it 2 more times, then...
You know what's kind of funny is that right now it's snowing on the map I'm on.
It's down one more is done.
Remember, Bane's always on location somewhere close, you just don't know where.
We're dropping off guys on the
Yeah, just jacking it
there and deal with them.
like
hey.
an onion.
He's very into murder porn.
He does vape, so he has a lot life left.
I'm pretty sure that joke's already been made before.
I mean, I'm
Jesus.
sure.
Melee mod. Don't.
How much longer we got? We got
We
3
got
seconds.
4 more loops of this song. Wow, that was quick.
Start stacking that cash, gang.
Alright,
Hey Terry, did you bring that song?
No.
Oh, fuck.
Hang on.
Cash in there. Find it and bag it.
Just hold him off. I'll do my thing.
Heads up. They're deploying on a nearby roof.
Why did I just call the dozer a pod today?
Bags go into the cage. The plane gets the cage. We get rich.
That's my daddy.
Where's the cloaker? There's another cloaker here.
Gotcha. Put the money in the bag. Or I'll be forced to and crash it.
What's up, Bill?
God damn. Smoke
No, I
the
haven't
pit.
thought about taking the saw.
It's
Okay,
fine.
maybe I should take the saw.
Oh shit, there's a lot of snipers up there. Don't shoot.
Oh!
Okay, continue shooting me. Jamo gets fucked on roof. Live leak.
Why are you on the roof?
Because I was intending to put the shit into the fucking thing.
What, you and me get some more first?
I mean, I just kind of, you know, assumed that I could do the thing.
Oh my god.
Going
You know
down.
what they say about
Alright,
assuming.
fuck this. You make an ass out of me, me, and me.
Going down, down.
Oh my god, there's a lot of people. Okay, they shot the grenade, they did.
Yeah, let's just focus on killing every. Oh, I'm down.
Well, bad news, boys. I kind of destroyed the ladder up there, so now I have to go the bullshit way.
It's a medic!
Having fun over here, Terry?
Yeah.
On the side note, this is the worst test ever.
This is on default. Imagine like how much harder it gets.
Oh, it's bullshit, you know that. this game used to be easier?
Before they added 13 new
Trying to think
difficulty
of
options,
the
yeah.
sky, but it's actually Go Bank.
Found some money.
Dude, I fucking hate Go Bank. I hate this map in fucking Counter 15. Actually, no, I really can't say anything.
Oh my god, he has no ammo.
I always just associate this map in Counter-Strike with us getting fucking booty blasted.
Or the other way around. That was just eating shit. Oh.
I regret picking the song for me.
Found more money.
I don't think we need to hit a certain limit of things.
Yeah, we can just throw it in there now. I think I'm gonna fucking.
Let's at least wait until
I'm missing the fucking yeah. We have 3.
we have 3.
Have you taken out that gun truck yet?
No, I can do that though.
You
if
just
you
need
want me
to do
get
it one more time and we're good. So just shoot it at it.
Goddamn medic. Okay. Fuck it, I'm just gonna fucking reload and then just take a one for the team. Hey, hit me.
I'm putting ammo back here for you guys.
Oh, I love flashbangs.
Can I be down, please?
I should probably fucking let's see.
Can someone actually down me for the first time I want? There we go. Okay. It's almost down. Oh my god. It's fucking smoking.
I'm shooting at it too from back here. There we go.
Did it blow up down? There you go. It's good.
I had infinite ammo there for a second. Oh,
Were you
yeah.
swan songing?
Yeah, you get infinite ammo
I
for
forgot
15
about
seconds
that.
after.
I thought my UI was broken. So we destroyed the thing.
Yeah, it's gone.
Wait for the wave to end and we can run up there. Is the wave end here?
I don't fucking
It
know.
hasn't ended yet.
Give like a minute or two. We could maybe. God damn it! I missed not having a sniper rifle. Oh my god. I'm defensive weapon at this.
What's the fastest way to get up there? Oh fuck!
I think
there's a
there
shit ton
were-
of snipers out there.
I think we're good though. They're kind of like.
Yeah, I think we're good. Grab a bag and take it upstairs. There we
Look
go.
at that.
Let's go.
Down.
Remember,
Get
there's
fucked
still
down the
snipers
ground.
on the outside during the calm.
I'm making hostages. I'm making hostages. Raise it in.
Can we do more than one load?
I don't think so. But to be honest, we just need to fucking. We need to get the fuck out of here.
Bags. Get that last bag.
Anyway, here's the issue though. We can carry more of them out, Terry. Don't worry about that. So just keep doing that if you want.
Oh no.
Where is it?
I have
Where is
to
it?
wake up. I have to wake up.
I have to wake up.
Where the fuck is it? Oh, there it is! Fucking just came out of the ground. So here's the issue about this.
More.
What's the issue, dude?
We have to keep up here or else we're fucked. Or else they're gonna take the money. Remember?
Don't worry.
I have one more down here if you want to bring it up.
Coming. Oh. But we have time to go up there, don't worry. Terry, you might just want to go up here. You're boss. You might as well go up. It's follow me.
No momento, por favor.
Isn't it safer up there than it is up here?
I mean, up here, all you gotta really worry about is snipers. Boy, crikey.
You hear what I'm talking about with Clover's voice lines?
I don't even know this. Remember, I don't play Clover.
Fair enough.
Don't
Mama, do you mind if I steal first to get a good one?
Go for it. I haven't put down.
Like you drop one, thank you.
I'm not selfish with my cupcakes.
These guys are fucked.
Don't act dumb. Don't.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Right in the tournament.
Some more money.
Car Shop is a fun heist. It just sucks because we never played stealth heists. Me and Rear do, but we can't understand stealth.
I'm horrible. Terry,
My. What?
can you, right there.
Shit.
Thank you. Yeah, you've been kind of alone. Let's throw a grenade with this. I hope I don't get anyone
Hey,
important.
Rear, did you want to join us, by the way?
No, I'm probably gonna head out in a little bit.
In that case, hey, Build, if you want to play Payday with us, you feel free to join.
30 seconds, almost there.
We haven't played Payday in like 7 months.
Oh my god, this is bad.
Don't act dumb. Don't.
Come on, can I have another one of the cupcakes? Oh no, oh thank god, I'm glad I picked it up. Oh.
Don't act dumb. Alright, what are we still waiting for, by the way?
Oh fuck, waiting for the fucking guy to get him, remember?
Oh, okay, you raised the
Target
game.
inside. Going in.
Please get it once first. It's not going to, but I know he's. I want him to, please.
Oh, okay, bye.
Oh my god, he actually did it!
Well, okay. I forgot how fucking speedy fast he comes by.
You never notice how he almost never does it first time?
No, I don't remember anything about this game, dude.
I remember that clear as day because I fucking hated that. Grab ammo and heal up whenever you can because you're about to
Your limits are
race it.
very hard and a little overkill. That's great because we're having trouble on fucking overkill, basically.
This is an overkill. I mean, it's more, it's more
This
like.
is a crime
I think it's. Okay, let's go.
We're veterans.
Hang on.
Sorry, I'll be honest with you. Carrying bags out of here is a really bad idea.
Yeah,
You can do it if you want to. I like that mask stuff, jeez.
Alright, let's go. Jam,
Hey,
come
catch
on.
it,
What?
Come
You guys are
on.
going the wrong way.
It's over here. We're
Where?
serious. I just didn't want to run through the people.
Oh, I read that.
Yeah, this is a much safer option.
Well, I mean, then again, I'm running grinders, so.
Oh boy.
Oh yeah, I forgot about this.
There, Jamal, this.
You have the army on its way.
I forgot this heist ends with 20 minutes.
Oh fuck me! I hate this fucking heist so much.
Don't worry, it's easy.
What does point of no return mean?
If you don't get there,
we don't get
out
there
of
in
here,
that time limit, we fail.
Dallas is dead. Just
Fuck
freedom.
Dallas. And the game just never cannily ends. Wait, is it this way? Ah, fuck, we gotta pick the lock, that's right! Fuck!
Pick it, because Terry has to
I got
fucking.
it.
Turn.
Don't act dumb. Don't act dumb. Don't act dumb. Don't. Oh, bye, Dallas. Found it.
Oh my god, we actually fucking did it.
Faster than me. I'm so fucking fat. I'm sorry, guys. I had to leave my rascal at home.
Can you imagine fucking people heisting a bank with a fucking rascal?
Oh my god, we actually did it.
Look, we did it.
Pretty nice flying from my guy as well. Let's use him again sometime.
We got 10 things. I don't
Damn.
recognize any of these
$4
heists.
million apparently.
Next heist.
Swingboat, Sands Workshop, or Lion's Den. Lion's Den is the Rust one. Swingboat is the fucking part where you have to fucking rig the thing. The Sands Workshop is fucking
I can
coke.
re-roll if you guys want me to.
Dude, Santa's workshop.
Dude.
Santa's
Yeah,
Workshop is a difficult one.
We can do it though.
I'm gonna re-roll and see what I get.
That. Bank heist? Or let's do bank heist.
And bank heist.
See, it's easy and it's fucking. No, stop.
I'll get the saw.
After shooting with a bow, don't forget to pick up your arrows.
We're robbing this bank for cash. Pure and simple. You need to get into the bank vault using a thermal.
Oh, dude, there's pre-planning. I love the pre-planning.
Let's get some ammo. Maybe getting lost.
No, I'm just writing out help.
Back up. No, let's do. Let's make it easier. Let's just fucking take the vault key, and also let's just fucking get what's it called? Where is it? Stand alarm.
Oh yeah, I forgot that about Payday. Whenever you're in the full screen application, at least I think this was full screen. Is it full screen? Yes, it is.
Also, if you don't mind, can you everyone go to the safe cracking plan? Please go to rear, please, and put it in gear.
Are we agreed upon?
Thank you.
I
all I
forgot
need.
that. Wait, are we trying to stealth this?
Hope.
No,
Alright.
hey, it makes it a little faster.
I forgot this is one of those games where, whenever you have multiple monitors, if you like
Yeah, I just
scroll in
noticed
the
that.
game, it fucking controls everything.
Yeah, I just noticed that. What the fuck?
Because I was wondering why my chat was just going up and down as I was doing this. So
Thanks for
if
making
you're
loss.
saying anything, Build, I love you, but I can't see you right now.
I'll pick a good song. Change song, please. I'm not gonna actually just tie crime street the fucking Dyke Dumb on our side. Fucking kill myself.
Don't act dumb.
What the fuck is the code? Ah, fuck it. I'll just post one of my emotes anyways, because they're better. What am I doing? Loss.
Change the song.
Loss. I'm gonna carve a pumpkin that's just loss.
Excellent. Time to
Excellent.
Sorry, but done that.
Alright,
Sounds like a loss.
oh, you can just pick them now. That's cool.
Let's yeah, but just what to say about that.
What was that one that I fucking hated? Oh, found it.
What
I'm gonna regret this, but... Yeah!
isn't it?
My guy stashed the thermal drill for... It's a straight cash hit. You know how it
I'll
goes.
wait here. I'll be the backup plan.
What's new, buddy?
Right. Let's get it on.
They're gonna bring in the big guns if you kill
Oh, you
the
killed him.
civilians.
I thought you just knocked him out. Nah, you
I
gotta...
punched in the mouth.
I would like...
Hey,
to
you guys,
this man.
you guys ready to fucking?
Alright, I cannot put... Okay, fuck it.
Nice.
Hey, hold on, fucking no! Oh yeah, we actually probably could stealth a little bit. Oh, fuck it. What did I care?
You
I
said
thought
we
it was
weren't
funny.
stealthing.
No. I just found it funny because I threw the mat thing, then only one person saw it.
Damn it. Now we go the painful way.
You ruined it, Terry. Now I have to fucking fire you. I'm sorry.
Shut up.
Shut up, bitch. Well, I've got to keep...
I'm all up in
Open
the
up,
up in
please,
the draw.
I can upgrade the thermal... Guys, the thermal...
Get hostages.
This is probably the easiest heist in the game.
Watch us fail on it.
If we do, that's gonna be shameful. What do you think is the hardest heist, gentlemen?
Go.
On the ground.
The Goat Simulator heist is bullshit. I still think one of the hardest heists is definitely Big Oil, because it's basically just luck.
Yeah, but the thing about fucking Big Oil is that you can be lucky. Go Simulator, there's no luck involved. It's just fucking getting
Agony.
shit on. I forgot to change my gun. Goddammit. Oh, fuck.
Don't worry, we've got guns.
I like the sound of this gun.
Silenced shotgun.
Force will slow them down.
I used to be fucking great at micromanaging this game, and now I'm just running around like, I don't fucking know what I'm doing.
But you had to tie down the hostages.
Oh hey, there's the key card room. There's nothing to do here, so I'm not stealthing.
Follow.
Wait, what the fuck? Okay, I now remember what I'm gonna do. I never really streamed this game either.
Free the civilians.
Whenever we started playing this game, like hardcore, that was whenever I just kind of stopped streaming because I was lazy. And now the only thing that's changed is I got a better computer, so it doesn't lag as bad.
Same.
I don't even keep Shadowplay on anymore, actually.
Yeah, neither one.
Because, I mean, I stream everything. If we want to save something, we just go back and clip it. Which is the better way, because it generates me numbers. You switch Sims 2 for
Numbers.
Definitely played a lot of this game. 241 hours worth.
Move! Faster!
It's an enemy medic. Medic is dead.
Hey, medic. What infamy am I? I have a V card, I think.
It's small. You have your V card.
Yeah, I still have my
get
V
it.
card. I'm so close to fucking getting rid of it, though.
I told this lady, and
I
she
was
said
talking
she
to
was
this
gonna
girl on
fuck.
Tinder. Yeah, I'm level 5.
So you like it
Infamous. Level V.
Level 1, level 2.
Level 17.
Why didn't you change the fucking mask of your bots? And the guns. Hey, you can also get them perks.
Alright, I did not know
But
that.
but
I shall
only
do
the
that after
bot
this
perks.
one.
Bot perks.
Bot perks, so I can't give them Inspire. And be
No, they
ridiculously
actually do
overpowered.
have Inspires. They actually do have Inspire, but it's limited to a 6-minute cooldown.
You know, I gotta wonder, like, with all the pre-planning and shit, like, fucking, how does somebody just casually come in right before the heist, and then they're just like, okay, I'm gonna put this bag of fucking 556
Well, it's
ammo.
Insider. Insider, so I guess there's people like who work here who are like in on it.
But like, how do we have insiders for
Ask,
everything?
ask the question of where the fuck do you like? Well, because I mean, good grammar. Fucking we're using like teeth everywhere.
And then
But
again,
more
I can't really
importantly,
say shit
I
because
wanted
some
to
guy
say
was like, hey, we're gonna rob shop and save. I want you to take this bag of ammo and put it somewhere. I was like, okay. I'll find something.
what's in it for
Now-
$10 billion?
Reconsider what you're saying, and well, okay. Take a think of what you're doing right now.
Live streaming?
Yeah.
Nah, no, that's fine. They don't want me.
Until my come here,
Well,
fair.
no, until it actually happens, and they're like,
Jamal,
oh well, he
100%.
streams every fucking night.
Jamal, I want to
here
put
it
some-
is. It
Talking
was
about
him.
robbing this
Wait, Jamal. Okay, look at this. Okay, so this is your office. Okay, this is you.
Shooting myself in the head.
No, this is them shooting you in the head when they fucking
Oh,
cut ties.
yeah, because the fucking store's run by the mafia.
No, I'm saying is the people who robbed the place are gonna
okay.
fucking kill you.
I mean, that'd be great. I'd be an American hero. I'd probably get like a segment on the news.
Until they find out, and then your family be ashamed.
Oh, I have a fun story to tell you guys, by the way. So, as you know, I got a haircut. And one thing I hate about getting a haircut is every single time I get a haircut, they fucking cut it way too short.
That's for really long, and then they'll cry no more.
Yeah, I mean, like, I hate having short hair because it does not complement my lumpy head. But, anyways, that's not the point. The way that I had my hairstyle today was basically just a little shitty comb over, like the Schemo Kyle haircut, essentially. I get into work today, and one of my coworkers was saying to me that with a clean-shaven face and my hair short like this, I have a very punchable face. And
Yeah, you do.
I just kind of laughed about it, and apparently a customer overheard that sentence and called the store and wanted to speak with the highest-ranking manager we have on duty about
Who's you?
how, well, it could have been me, but I transferred it to somebody else because I didn't want to deal with it. So,
Please stop.
I transferred this call over to the deli manager who's the MOD of this night. Press E to open the bandit barrier. Oh, it's that.
What?
But,
Hey.
this guy apparently called the store and was concerned that Shop and Save's working environment was too toxic and encouraged bullying. And the person who said it was one of my colleagues in the office, and I just laughed about it. But this guy, like, was so
Dude, you're
concerned
supposed to
about
shut up.
me getting bullied at work.
If anything, you're the bully.
Probably.
Well, Terry, go wild. Just tap it. Don't hold it. Just tap it on the thing.
I have so many extra blades.
I know, but
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's why I did. He fucking ran towards me and he ran away. I'm like, oh, that's why I'm going down, Chip. Well,
You know, this game is one of the reasons why I kind of am obsessed with Grand Theft Auto. Like, any game where it involves, like, getting the most amount of anything, like Payday getting the most amount of money, or GTA getting the most amount of money, or like
You're a glutton.
getting the least amount of money. Like, this game has just made me want to have the most amount of anything. That's why I go really into it with Grand Theft Auto missions and shit like that. Like, I want to get the most out of it.
so we have an issue.
Yeah. Thing.
Why don't you look where the turret is?
Yeah. That's what I'm trying to deal with right here.
I mean, I can just go ham on him.
Go ham on him. I can pick you up. Let me know when you go down.
It's down.
More cash.
Is it dead down or is it just down?
It's down.
So it's
but I
still
can't really attack it. Yeah.
More cash.
Just
Nice.
don't get.
I'm waiting for that. I'm waiting for it to come back. I won't. Hey, I have two. Here. Oh, look at this. I fucking have 2 of these. 4 abuse medkits. I'm for HP plan.
I cannot stand up here. I don't have a target.
Not enough range.
More cash. Oh my god.
I mean, I think it kind of sucks.
A lot more satisfying whenever you're just drilling, right? Or sawing it, right?
A lot quicker.
Here, running
At this
and doing
point,
it.
I think we were at like, what, 25 minutes?
Do I have a handheld system? You mean like a 3DS? Because I have 3. Actually, no, technically I have 2. I have
Hey, what's
2
up, dude?
3DSs. I have. Oh, hey. I have 2 3DSs. I have a DS Lite. I have a classic DS that's broken, and I have 2 Game Boy Advance SPs.
Did you turn into a Game Boy?
Yes. Actually, those.
One more cash. You want to start taking that out?
Give me a minute. I'm destroying the fucking thingamajig.
Yeah.
I just took the one cut the pieces head on. I just fucking blow his head off.
Let's go.
Yeah, the reason why I have 2 3DSs is because
He's an idiot.
Yes.
Wasting all my ammo, but it doesn't really matter. Damn, how much did you put? What's the fucking doing big?
What kind of dank shit do you play it on?
There we go. It's dead. The turret's on.
I've read that.
We're good now.
Right now, I am currently playing through Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga plus Bowser's Mayhem, which is a very long title. It is the remake of my favorite game of all fucking time. We're on to stream it by getting a 3DS capture card, but then I ordered the wrong fucking thing, and now I just have another 3DS for the fuck of it.
Are they both new 3DS or just 3DS?
No, one's a regular 3DS and one's a new 3DS. Right now, I'm currently playing it on the regular 3DS just because the other one's charging. But I basically just swapped the cartridge in between games, or in between 3DSs. One of these days, I'll get a capture card, and then I'll play all the games that I missed out on, because I've never played a Pokemon game past Generation 4. I've also played none of the Mario & Luigi games past the 3rd one.
Terry, I'm taking some here. I'm helping him on.
I have another one. No, I don't.
I also promised Terry I'd play Monster Hunter at some point.
May as well just wait for Monster Hunter Worlds. You know what? We'll double it up. We'll do it with Mayothon. We can also play some Dark Souls at that point, too.
Why do you always bring up how much of a piece of shit I am?
Because you're a piece of shit.
I mean, it shit fits.
Oh, hey, how's that art trade going?
I've never even heard of that game, actually. I'm very first party with my 3DS games. Like, it's just Nintendo games and nothing else. I have both of the Ocarina of Time and Majora Mask remakes.
Found more money.
As a matter of fact, now that I think about it, I don't think I've ever owned a third-party 3DS game at all.
Going down. Cool.
I actually don't think I have any like, third-party DS games either.
Hey, what's up, dude? Help me.
Oh shit.
No.
Hey, Terry, you wanna help me out?
Yeah, get noob. Noob, you have Inspire, right?
Yeah, Inspire. I'll cheap one. Let's go heal now, fucking.
I actually pointed out to myself the other day that the only games I currently have for 3DS are remakes of previous games I've played.
Oh no. It's fucking shield away. Oh. Are we just one? What the fuck's your band?
What?
Your band's different.
Oh yeah, you
There's
can
fucking
customize it
candy
now.
now.
It's a safe house. I made mine ice cream van.
Guys, I think I need help.
I'm coming.
Babysit Rust, I got theory.
The first thing I look at over us, I get the fuck up. I'm just a good babysitter.
I'm such a good babysitter.
Yes,
I'm almost
as
done.
my
I
baby
just have a couple more. Hang on.
falls down.
The only thing Rust has going for him is the fact that he's rock fucking prone.
Wait, is the fucking what's fucking? Oh, there's another gun turret.
Yeah.
How much I hate this song. What the fuck? Oh, the guy's alive.
I'm screaming.
All right, that's it.
Are you happy there?
Here, somebody else take this. I'm fucking slow.
I got it. I'm gonna fucking stock up on.
Oh my fucking god!
Is there a lot out
Hey, Terry,
there?
come here. Hey, come here. It's just come here. Hey, sit in the corner and see this.
It's not that many.
There were a lot more. On top of that, they were all next to each other.
Kobe!
Not spread out.
I fucked up.
Nice.
Is that all of them?
It's all of them.
Let's skedaddle.
All the loot in this conceivable universe.
Can't wait to have the escape mission. I'm gonna blow my nose.
In my brain.
Hey,
Loot bags in place and money ready to get
Look at there. There's no thing.
You guys never disappoint.
There's no escape mission. Oh, by the way, Terry, for every one of these we do, we get a card as well, so it's kind of cool. But it's kind of normal. The search.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the search
just got
is
6
Hawks
million off of
Breakout
that
day
one.
2, correct?
That is did do, yes.
You want to just do that because we know we can do it?
I mean,
Eh, too
you
late.
saying that just fucked us. I want you to
Alt
know
Stone
that.
was once married, but it didn't end happily.
Captain Williams, thank you for remembering. It says Captain Williams will retreat when he is taking enough damage. That means I have to fucking grab things.
damage of every arrow shot from a bow will increase depending on how.
Remember, we're good at Hoxie
I shouldn't have
Talksies.
been there to begin with.
I shouldn't have been
Oh,
there to begin with. Somebody set me up.
The feds are too
I
much on me.
fucking knew it.
Way more
Does the saw need to be?
No,
No, we don't stop. I mean, can you open the door of those things? Can you?
No, that's ECMs.
It ain't gonna be easy.
Okay, it's right, yeah.
No fannying about around the edges,
Take a
right?
good song.
No shadowy deals or contacts
The
about
biggest
bonds.
FBI
Go into
agents
the
gonna
soul.
I'll
find
take a
out who
classic.
screwed me.
FBI nest. Gonna find out
shacked
who
it.
screwed me.
Gonna find out who screwed me.
No, before we do this, before anyone else do this, you have to use the bathroom. Excited, be back.
Enjoy yourself. Mr. Wireless Headset is gonna listen to us while he's urinating.
I wish I could listen to him while.
Throwback Thursday to the time that I took a dump and accidentally voiced the sound of poop hitting the water. Also, on a side note, you know what I really fucking hate? I hate toilets that automatically flush. I hate them, I hate them, I hate them. You wanna know
Why?
why I hate them?
Because you like to look at your stool.
That, I always make sure that I'm not bleeding from my rectum. But then again, I could do that while I wipe. Anyways, fucking the toilet at my work environment automatically flushes, and I've never had a problem with it before until today, where it decided to turn into a bidet. So I'm sitting there taking a shit, and like as soon as the poop leaves my butthole, it touches the water, and then all of a sudden it flushes, and I can feel it splashing up against my ass.
Oh, it's the worst.
And I did not like the feeling of that. It's nothing like having a already shit-filled bidet touching your butt.
You hate it?
Okay, I'm back.
I know I hate it. When
Wait, hey, what?
I sit down to take a poop and my dick is in the water, that's the worst.
I don't have that problem, unfortunately.
I have that problem every time. I can't even stand next to one. This flies in there.
It fucking sucks.
I mean,
Especially if it's like you're out of it, you're, tired as shit, and you just want to go home. Like, oh, I need to go use the bathroom. I really gotta take a shit. Oh, here's a disgusting fucking rundown gas station. Let me go take pop a squat, and I sit down and drip. Oh no. Oh no.
I can imagine
wish I had
that
that
being a
issue.
terrible problem.
It's the fucking worst.
Man
I
gloats
like
about
how
dick size.
Bill just says Jesus Christ after that.
Okay, let's go. Fucking let's go.
You could be like Stamper, and every single time he sits down, his balls dunk in the water.
There's the entrance. Don't pussyfoot around.
Bro,
What I've
knock
heard,
that
Stamper
front door
has
down.
very big balls.
Oh god, it's weird.
So how does Crime Spree work? Does it just keep going until we fuck up and lose? Like,
I
is
mean,
it-
yeah,
is
but
it
you can
Smash
stop it
Bros.
and win.
All-Star?
So there's another card. Wait, there's another key card here. Look at this.
Fucking
There's a duplicate key card.
Does
There's
that
a key
still
card right
work?
here. No, but I think there's multiple key cards.
Well, yeah, there's multiple key cards. but
Oh, no, I'm
does it
seeing
still work?
multiple key cards were on one thing. It's one by the door here. Over here.
Oh,
Come on. Over here, come on.
I'm coming.
I can't. Okay, I guess I have to go this way.
It's
Alright, I've got one.
Koi keeps falling over.
It's on. Jesus Christ, things fucking like tanks. I forgot.
This is kind of nostalgic for me.
Oh god, we have Jimmy. Hey, Jamal, you can pick who you what bots you want and everything. You're cool.
I might look into that because I kind of want all of my bots to be wolf.
No.
So I can hear it.
You can't change. You can't. I mean, but you can have it him default, but you can't have the same people.
What do you mean I can't have the same people?
As in, if like if
So
you have
what
one
you're
that
saying
give
is I
wolf,
can't have all of them be wolf.
yeah.
I knew that. If you can't have everybody playing as wolf in general.
It's such a design flaw.
I mean, then again, currently none of us are playing as any of the original crew.
I don't think I've ever played as anybody other.
Follow me.
And I used to play as mainly John Wick.
The cloaker is down.
Guess I might as well do the metal.
You know, it will go faster if you use both your hands, buddy.
Get here.
Were you talking about Hoxton?
Yeah.
Nah, he's fine.
He's having a stroke. Okay, calm down.
Here's some fucking ass.
I mean,
First aid kit, amigos.
First aid kit, amigo.
Get here.
I swear I'm not a racist. Oh no. Fucking fix it!
oh god, I just got fucking non-flashbacks.
Dang, I can't do what I need to do without power. Fucking fix it! Remember
fuck
how
wasn't
we
watching
used
the
to
goddamn-
fucking reverse this goddamn heist? Like, we would just say the lines as he's saying them. Like, we'd Rocky
Yeah.
callback this shit. Good to see the pistol still overpowered.
Oh, but these go on forever. As in, you can do currencies forever until you lose.
Oh, that's actually... What does it
Yeah,
give
make
you?
it harder.
Just more experience?
More experience, more things, and I think after a while it starts to give you double drops and that kind of stuff.
So do those cards, like at the end of the crime spree, send to us? Because I was
Yep.
noticing that we didn't actually get any money.
Yep,
I
it
think
goes
we
one
just
after
get
another.
all- yeah, okay. So
Yeah.
if we theoretically do this for 365 heists, we have a card for every single day of the year.
Yep.
Well, I figured out what we're streaming primarily for the next 365 days, guys.
So I had to pick the cards, right?
I mean, no. Basically, it's at the end of the thing you get all the cards, and then you will basically, it's like winning a heist.
We'll just
or
get a starter deck.
If only. No, it basically it's just
Gary, we
imagine
should play more Yu-Gi-Oh.
So you don't get the cash until later.
this.
Okay, I just needed to know that.
Okay, are we using the fucking
fucking
card in this? Or
it's
are
not gonna go well. What?
this the phrase drill that's not getting hard yet.
Do you want a drill dough in your ass? You know, I just want to share a little
Jesus
quick
Christ.
story. For some reason, whenever I was younger, specifically the age whenever I first met you guys, specifically you, I used to think the phrase atomic dildo launcher was the funniest thing on earth.
Yeah, I'm breezing that.
I don't know why I used to
what?
think that was so funny, but I used to think it was the fucking most hilarious thing in the world.
Am I
You
gonna
ever
upgrade the
go
building?
back to like your old Facebook posts?
Oh, it's horrible.
Dude,
It makes me want to kill myself.
Whenever fucking Facebook's like, yeah, memories to look back on today, I'm always like,
It's Jamal
Oh,
Conquer.
this is the time of the year when I first made it. Oh no. 2010 me. No.
I have a very cringy story to share. You know those
What's
things that the dank teenagers on Facebook will do where they'll type out like rate me 1 to 10 or whatever, or like
I never did that, 'cause I
inbox
was too
me or
fucking scared.
TBH to be honest whatever thing. Fucking I did that once and a girl that I liked commented on it and
You're like,
it was one of those rate me post things and I rated her in the comments. I didn't inbox her, I just fucking in the comments of the post. Needless to say that was deleted.
Let's see if there's any trace of the traitor's DNA on it.
Somebody else tell a cringy story so I'm not a fucking creep.
This one time I heard some fucking nerd talk about how his crush was on Facebook and he left a message on him. Fucking cringy, right?
This one time? Oh man, this one's really bad. This one time I lost my virginity. Oh wait.
When you guys are in my bed trying to do sleep, when you randomly think about, or do you randomly think about cringy shit you did years ago?
Yes.
I do that all the time.
All the time.
Dude. Also, Bill typo and said when you guys are in my bed. I don't think I'm in your bed. Although if that's an invite. Dude, I think about cringy shit I did as a teenager all day long.
I can't stop myself.
It's really sucking.
Like, without doubt, I do know. I think about it at work too. It's the captain!
Oh no, does anyone have any? Oh no.
I've got grenades.
All have grenades.
Okay, the traitor's identity is classified.
No, we can get grenades, we just gotta be good.
I got a sample of his DNA.
Maybe you wanna go take care of that real quick?
Back to Hoxton.
I'll try, yeah.
Remember, we also got 2 key cards.
And we also have me going down in this ground shoot pool.
Oh, well, in that case, we're fucking old. Anybody have
Fucker,
any
fucker.
cool stories to share?
If you give me time to think about it, sure I can come up with
I'm
something.
trying to, but I think I repressed all of them. And like every time I hear it, like,
give you one.
can you not?
Don't
Can
worry,
you just
it's
not?
a simple one.
No, no,
I
no.
was just gonna say
whatever.
how we used to play Team Fortress 2, and every time you killed somebody, you'd say "rar."
Yeah, I know. Stop that.
You remember that? You remember that?
This is
You
the
said
man
what?
kills himself.
You
Rawr.
used to say "rar" into the mic.
Like,
I guess this is karma.
Tactical awareness at all times.
I've got another cringe story that applies to all of us. This isn't so much cringe, but looking back, like we were little punks about this. Remember how we never used Skype or TeamSpeak or anything? We always just communicated with each other via in-game voice chat. Like we would just go into TFT
Yeah.
pubs and fucking talk to each other. Like, we
Yeah, I'm
had a
down.
conversation normally. That was-
yeah, I fucking hate that.
No, don't worry. I will say. Oh shit. Okay.
Yeah, I got him out. He's gone. He's on me, blue. He's going down.
I didn't even have to do anything for that. You did it, dude. You did it.
So I forgot that I have a sniper rifle, so that is it's a throwing grenade to this us.
Witness testimonies kept in the archives. Give me those
I could
files.
probably write a fucking book, Bill, about all the crazy shit I did younger past me. I remember one time a
This
girl.
thing makes me want to drink.
Yeah. This is gonna be the cringe stream.
Oh.
Remember one time there was a girl that was in one of my classes that I kind of had a crush on, and she I think she knew this, so she took advantage of it. Looking back, I don't really care, but I remember.
Well, do you want to upgrade this? Sorry.
What?
Upgrade the drill, gentlemen.
Not sure. I didn't even know what the fuck we're doing. Oh, archives. Okay. But no, there was this girl that wanted me to leave in the middle of class, by the way, to go down to the cafeteria to buy her a bag of chips, and I did
down.
that. I skipped class just to get this girl a bag of chips. Also, I'm down. Actually, it
Starting
wasn't
to get
chips,
dire.
it was fucking hot Cheetos.
These are chips.
Well, yeah, but
No, they're not, you stupid bitch.
Cheetos. Hello.
What's up? Can you fix the drill? So you
Yeah,
can
hold
fix
on.
it all?
It's reloading. But whenever I inevitably have to fucking, you know, die again. So I think the video game's a bit too loud. It's always this heist I realize
Yeah.
it on. There we go.
Like turn the corner and get punched in the fucking mouth by a goddamn
Wait, do I
Josie.
still have Microsoft Jack installed? I honestly have.
Guys, I might need a hand.
I'm coming.
Come.
Oh, never mind. You go get it. I'll fix the drill. Hey, dude, please don't die. I like telling cringe stories. It's fun for me. It makes me realize how much of a better human being I've become.
Yeah, if I could remember any. I'm racking my brain. I'm too tired. I'm usually fairly open about them.
I always like to imagine this section of the game is just like we're getting shot at and we're just shifting through fucking like opening and closing like manila folders and binders.
Basically.
Like, I have to find my treasured Pokemon cards. I
Oh
have to
boy.
find my holographic Charizard.
Things are not looking good in the back room here.
No, we're coming. Dude, take that fucking thing. Oh, never mind, I'll take it. So you don't need it. Oh fuck! Okay, that scared the shit out of me. Oh my fucking god. Oh no. How did I fucking absorb that thing the first time? Hey, you! Get on your feet!
Okay, this is not good.
We're fine, we're fine.
No, I'm at the fight. Went back with fucking Jimmy now.
Hold on, let me get resistance.
You're fine. You're fine. You're fine.
Fucking stop healing the man. I'm trying to kill the cloaker behind him. Fucking Betty. Get your fucking buddy!
Jimmy, you fucking asshole. Okay, I'm about to go down probably. Oh well. It's a boy. Hey, lady.
Hey, boy!
Oh, there's a dozer up there on that ledge.
Is he hit? Make him.
No, he's down.
Oh, I think menu's down as in he's dead.
No, he's there. There's another one coming in.
Oh right, I forgot about that one lone sniper on this fucking ledge.
Yeah, I know, right?
I always love the idea of just the last one died and they just go over and throw the last dead body off the side.
It's a really good sniping spot. No one sees me.
For fuck's sakes.
Just hold on.
I went to the FBI and I have fucking like power back like goddamn what's it called, battery backups on their servers.
I don't know.
I think.
I think a better question is
Those
why
are
they
coming
have
down.
fucking oh, hello. I think a better question is why do they just have circuit breakers hanging out like in the main room?
Obviously for such as just such an
Just such
occasion.
an occasion. There's circuit breakers everywhere for just such an occasion. Do I even fucking have
I
hots on
can't
this
tell if
thing?
this. I can't tell if this is what's it called? If this is like overkill or not.
It has to.
It's not.
Because there's no death.
Yeah.
penalties.
Well, I guess, but I mean, you're right. Yeah.
Remember, they have unique enemies for every fucking.
Only tans, yeah. Oh, I mean, it's easier than I thought it was going to be. Or maybe
Well, we
it's
have done this one 500 fucking times.
I think it's like 53 actually.
So I want to point out, Noob and I still have our fucking key codes. Wait, how many things have we
Who the
done?
hell is Jimmy?
You remember Hardcore Henry, that first-person movie thing?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he used the bad guy.
I forgot
from
about
that.
The bad guy? I thought he was the clone guy.
Was he the clone guy? I don't fucking remember. Noob, is that the one?
Looking around.
Yeah, he's the clone.
Is that it? I don't remember what it looks like.
This fucking
That's it.
computer. You want to keycard it, or you want to fucking?
No, just throw it. You never know if we're gonna need the fucking.
That's bull. That is bullshit. There's no way in hell I can just crawl through this fucking thing, and grab that. Oh, jump on run.
What? There's two shields and a fan.
There's a dozer somewhere in this mirror.
I hope you guys don't
Oh,
mind. I
going
kept
down.
Jimmy with me.
No, we don't care.
Going down in a
We
minute.
can hold our own. I mean, at least I can.
I'm doing great.
I
I fucking hit my left when I fucking die.
got it.
Okay, 2 shots. I just doubled the fucking. Oh, you might have called Jay back to you.
Go ahead.
Oh, you might have called him back to you because.
Yeah, he's with us now. I do gotta say, they really
Jamming.
did fix a lot of the desync issues in this game.
Yeah, they did this whole big patch for it.
Yeah, no, but I haven't played it since then. Like, I'm actually impressed to see that it's not as bad. Remember, it used to be terrible.
You carrying it?
Yeah, I got it. Oh, there's a dozer there. Just want credit for killing the dozer.
Oh, I'm going down.
I'll be back to get you.
You're fine, I'm coming.
Oh, hey, that guy died. Oh,
Oh,
hey.
oh.
Oh, right, we gotta plug it in.
Plug it in.
Plug it in, plug it in.
God damn, it's
Enemy
fucking horrible. voice
magnetic,
acting.
no more.
Yeah, can you just tell me that it doesn't sound like she has like a cold?
Alright, listen, noob. You have this problem where whenever you hear a new line from any game that involves voice acting at all, you think they sound different.
It does.
You've done this with Left 4 Dead. You've done this with fucking Overwatch.
I'm still confirming that fucking it sounds completely different than the Zoe line, and I will stick to my guns until there will be a point in my life where you
do an
come to my
AMA
goddamn.
on Reddit for Valve. And ask them.
That's not AMA.
Well, fucking next
There
time
we
there's
go.
a Valve AMA, ask them about it. Because I guarantee you, you're just fucking delusional. Did you know the new voice acting lines for Wolf sound different than the original?
A fucking Medi.
You wanna know what the funny thing is? There's no new Wolf lines ever.
Fucking done.
What about Houston and Hoxton? I almost said
Like,
Hoxton.
I'm a
Eric Hoxton.
Francis Ford Coppola.
Prince Tittlesworth.
Oh,
hello.
no.
I need ammo bad.
It's getting scary in
I
here.
got some more back there from you.
Oh yeah, that's
Oh,
right. If
he
you
got
use,
me.
If you use your secondary while you pick up ammo, you don't get shit from it. Oh my fucking god, I'm eating shit here. I'm going down.
Like I said, it's getting scary in here.
Is there a doctor bag over there, by the way?
There is, yeah.
Good, because I need it.
Right here.
Oh my gosh.
He's just laying down vaping. That's how you get the ammo back.
It's like the play. Oh, fuck me.
Hey.
The PlayerUnknown's Battleground animation of, you know, drinking a Red Bull, but instead it's just me going prone and fucking vaping.
Vape item win. Oh, God damn it. Ah.
I'm down.
I got you. I like how I just shot this man up, make him drop his gun, and now he's just sitting there bleeding out. I want the blue screen, by the way. An error has occurred. To continue, press enter. Do you think the blue screen's copywritten?
No.
Alright.
That's actually the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
discussion.
No, actually, no. If you want to be specific, that exact screen is probably copywritten in some way, shape, or form, but you could never take it to court because it's a fucking blue screen with text on it. You could never fucking do that.
I mean, dumber things have been taken to court.
Right,
Such
fuck
as
it.
Starbucks and Red Bull and McDonald's lawsuits.
Which ones? All of
The
them.
Red Bull one, whenever the people said, "Yeah, you didn't give me wings." It's a good thing we
I
still got
killed
those
the
key
sniper.
cards.
I did.
Hello. Hey, Noob, do you remember that thing you said that one time at this part?
Fruit, you fucking.
I mean, don't repeat it. But you remember how you said that thing to Fruit? And it
Yeah,
was very
yeah.
racist and mean?
It was. Let's just say it again right now.
Don't. We've already had that
We
happen
did it.
once during this month. Don't do it again.
Hey, we got 2 of the things that we don't know anything about.
Oh, we got 3 cards for that. Holy shit. Okay, so every one of these.
Okay. I got a card for 340,000 experience. $7 million. Oh, is that like everything?
Yeah,
added up?
that's all we got. Yeah, and then there was 3 mystery cards. There are 3 cards we can get from like, our looting.
Okay, so this is all the added shit that we have all together.
Yeah. Oh no, this
Okay.
is this is just for this one. I think.
No,
Maybe.
because this one never paid that much.
Yeah, but
All right, now
it?
here's the issue. We have 3 things to choose
no, yeah,
from.
no, no, I'm right. No, here's
No,
the
yeah,
thing.
no. If you go up to
Yeah,
reward,
your rewards. Yeah, this
Well,
is
then,
this is just yeah. Damn, this is fucking nice. Damn.
This is a-
So cook-off would be pretty
easy.
hard, easy but hard because we just need to make 3 meth bags.
Yeah,
and
we
we're
just
fucking
gotta
done.
make 3 and then we go.
But I mean, we can do it. Yeah, we can try it.
I mean,
the
it's
issue is
easiest
we
out of
just
the
win
3,
up.
in my opinion.
We just win up 2 levels, I think.
Yeah,
Modifiers are.
Shields
Okay,
reject
well, fuck it.
projectiles. Cloakers will drop a smoke bomb when they kick a player, which I think is probably the easiest one. And then Medic's heal cooldown is 20% faster.
Where are you seeing this?
Modifiers.
it's up at the top.
I have
I'm
2
seeing
pages
next
of
force
that.
modifier is at 20% loud mount. What the fuck? Oh, maybe it's only. Okay, never mind. Fuck it. Let's go.
Who knows? It's all confusing.
Fuck, we'll do that.
Took off and then yeah. Oh, I see. New loud modifier. Oh, you get. Oh, I thought that was an options.
I mean,
Oh,
I just saw
I mean-
the thing pop up now.
Okay. 30 cloakers will drop smoke bombs when they kick play. Okay. So, what do you want to do? Cook off?
Yeah, if I wanted to cook off.
Wait, what are you doing?
There's something that I had to do in order to continue.
Okay, wait.
I think they
I'll-
make it so that way whenever you do the next mission, or the next heist rather,
I
you
see
have to
now. No,
select
because
things to make it more difficult.
we just went through 2 tiers.
Yes.
Yeah, that's not even
I
that
mean-
bad though. That
Man,
stuff.
because seeing as one of them don't even affect us, we don't play fucking stealth.
Yeah.
God help us, this is gonna be fucking interesting.
John Wick is sometimes called Baba Yaga after a Slavic folklore legend. I
Oh, I
didn't
wanna
know
see
that, and I
Ba-
don't think I ever needed to know that.
I have not seen Baba Yaga 2 yet, and I have to.
Baba Yaga 2.
Fuck, I'm buying all of them, because fucking we're gonna need everything we got.
Anyway, I scoped the place out and it's still intact. So, we're headed there to cook as much meth
Now I gotta change the thing.
stay as long as you want. If you run out of supplies, I'll get more flown in.
No, Bane, we don't want any more civilized. We just want to fucking do this and leave. I don't think there's any upsides to fucking doing more of it. I mean, maybe there is, I don't know. feel like we could definitely use some fucking upgrades. Where to play?
Oh, what is this?
1 second. Players march against an explosive mill. More ammo, more throwables. All players' time between switch weapons is increased by 50%. Stamina boost increased by 10. Self healer. Players will recover some health from killing enemies. It only happen when. Fuck yeah. No one now. No, definitely. And then I don't have any more fucking. Oh, we can only do one. Okay, so then do that.
We probably shouldn't be wasting those coins so early on.
Well, we get more coins. I have like 50 of them. Hey, Jamal, you pick a good song?
Ho ho ho!
Oh god, I actually did that.
Remember, don't take the thing.
Get into the house.
Just die.
No time to waste. Get in there.
Get the mess supplies.
Oh yeah, that's right. Do you remember the order to cook these in, noob?
We're going in meeting.
Oh,
That's
God, we
the
have wolf
issue.
with us.
Oh no.
Remember,
That's
it's
not the issue,
randomized,
Jamal.
I think.
There's it's randomized. And more importantly,
Caustic soda and hydrogen chloride. Easy.
the issue is they made it harder. And if we fuck this up, we're done.
Use the wrong ingredient.
Alright, listen. I got an idea. Pull up
I'm
the
letting you
guide.
call this, dude. There's no. You pull up the guide. You're the ones doing this. This is all 100% all you from now on. You haven't cleaned the top yet. Yeah.
Payday to cook off guide 2017.
The cops' radio is buzzing like crazy. They're already on their way.
Dude, this is fucked. This honey dropping.
Thinking. Use those
Everything.
boards to barricade more windows.
They're already here. Oh, they're already here.
Fuck, there's not a simplified version of this.
Is it in the basement now? I thought it was
It's
upstairs.
No, I'm in
No,
the
it's in the
basement
middle.
right now. Fuck, where's the...
Oh fuck! I didn't hear what you said. We're waiting.
Alright, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna keep this shit
The next step
fucking
is
in
Caustic
Steam
soda.
overlay.
hold on.
Caustic soda.
Okay,
What
I'll
the
do it.
fuck's my
Ready?
cursor? God damn it. God fucking damn it.
Okay, cause
Oh,
soda.
hello. Thanks, Wolf. I guess that's what I get for going AFK. Alright, so is it caustic soda?
Well, yeah, I
Yeah.
put cause soda in there. But I
You
mean,
already did?
remember it changed every time, doesn't it? Yeah, I did.
I fucking completely forgot about this.
I remember talking about this.
Okay, listen. Muriatic acid.
Hold on.
Should I add it?
I'll do it. Yeah, Muriatic acid. Yeah, you said Muriatic acid, right? Oh, wait,
Yeah.
let me see what it says. Let me see what it says here.
No, hydrogen chloride.
Wait, did he say? Wait, he said hydrogen chloride.
Oh my
You said
fucking
Muriatic
god.
acid again.
Muriatic acid again.
If I read this correctly, muriatic
Alright,
Okay,
what we'll
that's-
do is we'll just wait for him to repeat it like 4 times. Because all we gotta do is just get 3 bags and after that we move on.
It's fucking stressful. Oh my god.
Yeah, this is a lot more stressful than what it used to be.
Ah, I fucking shot him twice in the head.
Remember, double tap your penis.
Jamal, you want to throw some fucking babies around?
I don't want to throw babies, but okay.
That's a baby, alright.
My first hydrogen
For
chloride.
bouncing
Because
baby
it's
boy. No, man, the fucking hydrogen chloride. Remember, kids, this is the actual ingredients for meth.
Bag it up
Hey,
and
there's
let's
a lot of people
damage.
down here. Might want
Yeah,
to
man's
kill
understatement.
Be careful, they have snipers incoming.
I'm going down.
Oh shit. Alright, I'll be doing this one. I'm 72% sure.
What do you say?
I'm 72% sure.
Give it a second.
Yeah, wait.
You did hydrogen chloride twice. So.
Alright, I'm doing it.
It's the same order every time or no?
No.
Okay, just cost it first.
It's
Stupid, by the way.
random orders. By the way, don't worry too much about the lights. They don't offer us any benefit.
You can see things.
Yeah, but like, it's not that bad. Fucking, I thought I killed that man. Get those rockets. Alright.
Shotguns are bad.
They used to be bad.
That's all I ever use is shotguns.
Alright, so you said caustic soda twice now.
Oh my god, it's Dozer.
Yeah, I was taking care of him. Alright, he says caustic soda like 3 times, so I'm getting that one.
I like how we walked into a meth lab with the intent to fucking make meth. I don't know if you think this with the intent to just make them make us meth. I don't know.
Yeah.
You can do a bigger instructions on this in there. I mean, this just they got not gonna last long, but hey, it'll be there. Oh, look at that mark.
Terry, just think about it. This is what our meth labs in GTA do every single day.
Oh yeah, every day. This is what they.
Constantly, 24/7. Alright, the only thing I have left to do is muriatic acid.
No, I think we already did muriatic acid.
No, we did, he hasn't picked anything else up.
Alright, I need to go find ingredients now.
There's someone here. There's hydrogen
Should we
fluoride and
take the
muriatic acid
bag
in
out?
here.
Hold it slow?
Yeah, I already got it. No, it's fine. All 3 of it's in here, Jamal. Don't worry about it.
Okay, in that case,
I mean, actually, Terry, we was going to take it. That's right. We have to wait for the people to get here.
where's the rest of it?
In the bathroom.
Alright, in that case, I got it. We're only doing 3 and then we're getting the fuck out.
Yeah.
Normally, I would
yeah.
be like, let's keep going, but fuck it. We have a crime spree.
I don't think there's any like benefit.
There's
Let's look it up. Not that I want to.
I'm in this for the experience of playing random heists all night.
Fair enough.
Also, I'm really surprised Fruit hasn't showed up yet.
We're playing Payday, Chris.
Probably ignoring us because we're playing Payday. Also, side note, Reark is still here. Say hello, Reark.
No.
It's alright. Good answer.
Yeah, he's playing to a war right now. So.
Alright.
You're doing good on my
So
campaign.
caustic
Just
soda
became
once.
Shogun.
Holy shit! There's a fucking army coming.
Yeah, that's actually the army.
Caustic
Yeah, typical caustic soda.
Caustic soda. What the hell? What hell?
No, I just remembered that I love sniping up here, so that's what I'm doing now. No, medics. I fucking hate medics. Oh, that's right.
Remember, we don't specifically have to kill him.
Who?
The captain. It just makes it so that the assault never ends.
There's a medic!
He's a fucking medi.
Okay, you can come back and take care of him here. I think. Yeah, you can take him from here.
Oh shit, those are on the side. And he just walks through walls.
God, there's so fucking many of them. Look at this.
Should I like save the? Never mind. He's leaving already. I think yeah, he's already leaving. Man, I forgot how much of a pusher the captain is.
Twice, I'm doing it. Alright, we're good.
I thought I heard the explosion and I got really scared.
Toss this grenade. Oh fuck.
Oh fuck.
What are we gonna do
Can't
now?
believe we done this. Die, goddamn.
What's this fucking sniper?
And Doctor no longer in the house.
I miss Microsoft jacket. Oh shit. Alright, last thing I gotta do is...
Wish there was a kill count. Oh my god, I'd be on the fucking leaderboards.
Fucking goddamn. Payne just gave me a heart attack. I had the last ingredient and he goes, never mind, that won't be it. Wait, do we cook 4?
I don't think so. I mean,
Holy shit, there's
might have
so
to cook more.
fucking many of them, dude.
oh no, we don't. He's coming. He's on the way.
He's coming?
He's coming. Don't worry about it. Just fucking leave it on. I have 100% sure. I heard him say something.
Fuck. Alright, in that case, I'm not cooking anymore.
Yeah, fuck it. The fuck up.
Fuck up. They cut the power to the house.
Fucking, I hate medics.
I hate medis.
Basically.
Oh shit, there's a dozer right there. Where the fuck is he getting these statistics from? I'm 86% sure. I'm 72% sure.
I'm going down.
I'm
I'm down.
4.2% sure.
I'm going to take a medkit. I'm hungry for a cupcake.
Where the fuck are you?
I was almost done.
Are you absolutely fucking positive that you're moving?
I heard him.
Are you fucking 100% sure?
Give us a minute.
And wouldn't it say something? It just says defendant
No, it's.
death.
Why
Why don't we just do it to be safe?
Because if you fuck up, then. I mean, put Miragas in there, I guess. Why not? He's 93% sure.
I'm waiting for the next one just to be safe. I'm 8.2% gay. Alright, he's saying muriatic acid a lot. So I'm gonna do that. Once all these shields fuck out of here. Wait, I heard almost here. But I don't know who said
Yeah. Told you.
Can I get a little bit of help down here, please?
I'm keeping up fucking.
Where is he? I need help. Oh, thank you. There's grenade.
Fucking Christ, man.
Guys, I think it's muriatic acid. Can't be 100%
Fuck
sure.
me, we needed those cooks. He doesn't say that anymore.
He hasn't.
1 minute, okay, I definitely heard that, okay.
Yeah.
The issue is it's not popping up on the subtitles, so I didn't know what the fuck was going on. Unless it's just one of the fucking SWAT guys fucking with us.
Guys, look at this! I got one of the raid.
That's
I'm following them.
Austin gave it to us after that bank heist they left.
Fucking Hostin.
There, make a package. Caustic soda.
I am dope nokum. Go coco, no coco.
Jesus Christ, there's so many fucking people here.
I wish I was recording this because goddamn. Is there a kill count at the end of this?
I would love that.
Oh
Really,
god,
there would be,
dude.
yes,
I have
but
killed
since we
so
don't have the
fucking
classic
many.
credits. We might actually. Oh fuck!
Blind is a fucking.
Can't see shit, Captain.
I'm blind as a frickin' frick.
Just like Sonic. Ah!
Alright, he's here. Alright,
Okay,
we only gotta get 3. We
Yeah,
can't get
give
3.
one to Wolf.
You
I'm
think
not
so?
fast.
Because here's the issue with that. If he fucking just walks off, we're fucked.
Yeah.
All right, fine. I got one.
Don't worry, we'll be safe.
Here, we,
Fine,
we'll,
fine.
we'll clear our way out.
I'm not getting any faster anyway, so let's just.
Alright, we were somebody to clear up, but first we fucking let's go. Terry, drop
I'm not
it.
gonna get any clearer. We gotta fucking hit it.
Go, fuck it, let's go. It's right over here.
Oh my god, look at those shields.
Why aren't we escaping? There we go.
Oh.
Yeah, Terry, if you go to
Shotgun
stats,
101.
highest body count, 263 with you.
Jesus.
Complete any heist by killing
Almost down.
50 enemies and getting 101% accuracy or above using any
We all went
shotgun.
down once, and there's 3 downs.
140.
I didn't miss once. I didn't miss one
here's the issue.
shot.
I mean, you probably did, but here's the issue. With shotguns, you can get the fucking...
That's what I'm saying. I didn't miss one fucking shot.
I didn't miss shots I didn't take.
Personal hit accuracy, 149%.
I just want to say, special count, thank you. I'll bow.
Special count, 29.
Excuse me?
Alright, so
Okay.
here's the thing, boys. I don't want
Special
to
count, 29s. Body count, 263. Headshots, 200.
Xmas is pretty difficult, and I'm not
Engine
fucking
problem.
doing big oil, so I'm gonna re-roll.
Did we lose anything for that?
I cannot re-roll because I cannot afford it.
What do you need?
Cartel coins.
So I guess we're doing stealing Xmas.
I mean, we could do fucking go bank again if you want to.
I don't want to do go back.
No,
again.
don't. No, we could be very survived the first time.
We're doing stealing Xmas.
Scarface
You
isn't
don't
like
need to own a
cockroaches.
DLC heist to be able to play it. You can't host lobbies that are playing the DLC heist unless you own the DLC. So essentially, in order to play the DLC heist, if you don't own the DLCs, you have to suck somebody's dick to fucking play it.
Okay, so what boost should I buy this time?
Should I bring a saw?
No.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
You don't know though, so what a mess.
I haven't done any of these.
I've only done it like once, so
Fert and I've done this heist before. It's
You want me to get fucking...
easy, but at the same time, it's kind of difficult.
I'm gonna buy Self Healer again because it kept us alive pretty good.
Self-heal.
Now I hope that projectiles don't mean gunshots. And I hope they just mean like grenades.
I think it's just grenades.
Because if it's
Are
not,
you a masochist? Big Oil is your favorite heist in Payday 2. Yeah, you might be, I can't lie. See, the only thing I remember about Big Oil is we tried it once and it took us fucking an hour and
2
a half.
hours. Yeah. Because somebody fucking just put all the fucking goddamn the fucking I think it was Furt that picked up all the fucking engine and threw them into a pile like a goddamn sadist. Oh fuck, I'm angry.
Didn't we find out if he didn't do that, we would have gotten it on the first try?
Yeah. What song is this?
The Mark.
What's the song?
Alright, so if I remember this one, it's fairly easy.
Get a free Santa. Where the fuck Santa?
Underneath the Christmas tree.
No.
Just kidding, he's in your house. Fucking, I'm stuck on something. I got stuck inside
What are
the
we doing
fake
here?
ass snow. Alright, so this is Vlad's cousin who's drunk.
Why would they tie him up in a fucking...
No. Hit him. Punch him with your fucking electric taser fucking outlet things.
Supposed to wine, I think. Red Valley Red. Oh, you bring me...
I know there's clues for the engines in Big Oil, but like we didn't know that whenever we played it. We always do heist loud. Like the only people that heist.
Don't worry, guys. I found $2,000.
Oh, okay. We already found the thing. Wake him up!
VR.
Sure. Taser. Oh, that's a civilian. I like stealthing heists too, but we never get to do it a lot because Noob cannot stealth.
I'm bad.
Stealthing heist is a lot of fun. It really puts a new perspective in this game. Like Rear and I stealth heist is a fucking great deal. Oh, by the way, Rear.
Hey, so yeah, he's not that.
I mean, I would like to try one now that my computer isn't garbage.
See, the thing that's fun about stealth is like you got to deal with the.
Hey Jamal, can you upgrade this?
Where are you? Oh, it's down there. Yeah, hold on, come on. I like stealthing heists because it adds that like feeling of you know what I mean? Like that feeling
when you just
of,
come.
like I don't know how to describe it.
Where are we right now?
We can just take these. We can just take these fucking.
I've never done it.
We can just take these phones.
I could use a med kit.
Med kit or birthday kit?
He hasn't
Why?
gone down, so
Why?
look at his health. You know it's
Not
very
the you.
difficult heist to stealth.
In fact, the man was putting his hands up. He looked in his face, denied his freedom, and shot him in the fucking mouth.
Noob, I
Look,
probably
I
make
mean, I
you
could have brought the
cry.
saw, guys.
Hey Noob,
Yeah.
I can make you cry.
What?
I just have to say one word involving stealth heists. Alesso.
Okay, we got it secured.
Well,
There he goes.
those are over here.
I'm about to
I
die.
like stealthing in this game, but holy fuck, it's stressful. We were actually
Oh,
talking to Bill
shit.
earlier. Car Shop is a really fun stealth heist. Oh no! I can't see shit, Captain. I'm walking into a wall. Hey, remember the cosmetic skins in this game?
Yeah.
I'm sure they still do those. Can
Yep.
somebody
They're free now.
Yeah, but you don't need the drills anymore.
Yeah. But you still gotta grind on these things.
Who cares? I don't. Shit.
I mean, also they look terrible.
Some of them are okay.
What other stealth heists are interesting?
I got it. I got it.
This person in this fucking security office is probably like avoiding all of this. Like, hey, I'm glad I'm inside of here.
Oh, God, please no. And then we're like, oh my God. And he's dead.
Also, there's another safe in here. How much would be if it turned out this is the safe that we hit?
Oh no, I'm going down.
How do you go down? There's nobody in here.
Chingado, drop your weapon.
Anybody need ammo?
There's a money bag over here.
Now move.
I am good on ammo.
I'm pretty fine.
So, just be warned, one thing that sucks about this heist is we have to go onto the roof and there's snipers everywhere on there.
That's alright. I got a sniper rifle, so that's fine.
This is the heist that Fruit and I played and he got, like, custodied twice and I clutched it.
I got the VR headset. The Star VR headset. Kind of weird.
That thing sucks.
Is it even a thing anymore? Did it ever come out?
I doubt it. I'm talking
What?
about overkill here.
The Star VR. I'm about to go fucking eat shit.
I'm about to eat
I'm
shit,
going
man.
to jail. They hacked the fucking database of the shoe store.
You know, just saying, hacking a, you know, store, like a system, is probably the easiest thing you can fucking ever do. Coming as a retail manager that works with a store system, it's probably so fucking easy to guess their fucking password. Because I'm not even gonna fucking sugarcoat this. Our grocery store's password for the fucking computer is tomato1.
I wish you brought that drill now. I saw now. And I really?
Yeah. Tomato 1. Because literally everything else is too hard for my managers.
I just find
know
it funny
the
that
email
tomato.
address
You know,
and password
and
for Todd's personal email.
I want you. Have you thought about the fact that he calls himself Tomato? Because you know Todd's Tomato and you call him Tomato and the password's Tomato 1.
Egg boy. Dr. Robotnik.
He's your Eggman.
That's what he is.
I just noticed ButtBot said butt art. Alright, note to self, exhale vape. Before trying to say the word butt. Butt art haste is a pain. Oh, here we go. The code for the bowling alley is the last 4 digits of our phone number. Yeah, that's how our story is.
That's fine. At Holiday Inn, the code to make a key card is 1111, and then the key to make the fucking make an admin key is 5555.
The password to get into the systems to change the prices on everything in the store on the shitty little Nokia phones that we had is 123456.
I know at Best Buy, I guess to fucking meet the alarm, it's 1 2 3 4 5. But it's easy to tell that if you just look at the alarm. It's literally 1 2 3 4.
I would
The
talk
only
more
ones I
about
use.
shop and save passwords and stuff, but the issue is some of these things I use as my actual passwords.
Did you get the package?
Yeah, I got it. Alright, now we gotta do the roof bullshit. Like the armory and Hot Fuzz being 999. Step aside, I got this. 1, 1, 1, 1!
Jordan is falling downstairs.
Are we going downstairs?
No, we're
waiting for
Yeah,
someone
I
to
put
drop
that-
on the roof. So
We're up at the
essentially-
roof?
over here is good. Over here is good.
Yeah, we're hold off there.
It's choke points. Just choke point seems pretty good.
Unfortunately,
it's
they made it so
actually
you
horrible
can't
if they
stand
push.
on top of this.
Yeah.
So, what was the point of the drunk guy?
He's Almir.
What?
He's Almir.
It is Almir, actually.
Yeah.
Who's Elmir?
Wow, the credit. No, but he's Vlad's cousin, I think.
Yeah, cousin or brother or something. Brother-in-law. That's what it is.
So we're just leaving?
Nah, we're not done yet. I don't want to spoil the way that this heist ends because it's actually kind of cool. So apparently the story with this heist is the mall Santa, who is Vlad's brother-in-law, figured out all this expensive shit for us to steal.
Doesn't get drunk.
Yeah, and
He's always drunk.
he always, yeah, that's his purpose. He gets drunk in all the heists that he's involved in. Alright. Oh shit. I like how I'm holding off having a coughing fit so that way I can fucking play the game.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
This is painful. I'm not playing this up, by the way. I'm actually trying to suppress having a fucking major coughing fit before I can mute my mic again.
This is painful. Oh my god!
Alright, hold on.
No, my god.
Tag team me for a minute. Up.
Should I be coming up top?
If you want to, we're kind of planning C4 up here, but I mean,
I'm taking a shitload.
Alright, I think that's the bulk of it.
ex-military.
Oh my god. Oh, That was really painful. Oh my gosh.
I'm like it.
Oh,
Tomorrow you're the FC player.
I got it. I'm on it. I'm on the case. I'm always on duty.
I'm always on
Brown bricks.
duty.
Ugh.
No, God, I just fell for
Strummer Dead's live on Twitch. Oh, that was really painful. The bad thing is with this current cough I have is, like, it starts off fucking, you know, just
Fair
regular
enough.
chest congestion pain. And then, like, as I'm coughing a lot like that, it starts turning to dry heaves. Ugh. And then my mouth just fills up with so much fucking saliva. Oh, sorry for dying, guys.
You dumb piece of shit.
I'm sorry.
nigga Derek.
In that case, I should probably take a swig of Dayquil after this.
I don't think that's how it works, man.
Oh, I really wish I had a green screen on for that. Because that'd be funny meme quality shit. Oh yeah, I don't... Oh my god. There's 2 Easter eggs on this map.
Yeah.
This is where you find the bootleg.
It sounds like you're about to throw
Oh,
up. It just gets me.
stop. It's so fucking...
I'm sorry.
It sounds like you're about to throw up. Is what scares me.
It gets close, but I can control that part. Ugh. This is why I try not to stream when I'm sick. I can already feel all the clips Waz is making of me choking. Alright, I think we're good. Oh shit.
Hey, I found the back of the store here. You guys want to make some...
The
I guess we could have just commented.
Also, I want to share a moment of retardation I have.
Every day of your life.
Well, no. I completely forgot that Dayquil, and more specifically NyQuil, are products of the brand Vicks. For some reason, I kept seeing all of these Vicks, Vicks Dayquil, and for some reason thought it was, you know, NyQuil brand, but it had Vicks in it. And then I realized, wait a second, Vicks is the company that makes Dayquil and
There, go up
NyQuil.
here.
Up top?
Down here, down here.
Down here.
What in fuck?
Oh, it's actually fucking going down. Fuck it.
What are you doing up there?
Goes gonna have more loot. It's fine. Here. Everything's fine. I'm down, but it's okay. Thank you.
Well, see ya. Okay, we did it. Forced
Zero,
modifiers.
zero modifiers have been added. 0. Okay.
Oh, okay. Okay, let's take a swig of Dayquil so that doesn't happen again. That's not the sound of me taking Dayquil, by the way.
Wait. So what are the modifiers?
Reward, guys.
Oh, damn, too. No. What are the modifiers you can pick from?
I don't have to pick any right now.
Okay.
It kind of assigned one to us.
What is it? Enemies have additional 20% health and deal additional 50% damage. Oh god.
I hate Dayquil so much.
Dayquil burps.
That wasn't me. That was Terry.
No, that was you vaping. Okay, so let's just get something straight. We're not doing fucking Birth this guy.
Oh my god.
I can re-roll. Oh, never mind. I can't. I forgot to pour. Alright, so it's either Murky Station, which is stealth.
Stop fucking lying.
So I guess Transport Harbor?
I think Murky Station can be done anytime, can't it?
I don't know. It has the stealth
don't
symbol, so... let's
Yeah,
not
just do
anything
fucking
safe.
transport. Yeah.
I think if we don't stealth it, we fucking fail, so.
Stop fucking fucking.
Dear God, I fucking hate Dayquil, but it helps. Ugh.
A steel container of professional badass. Hit the trucks and get the loot to the getaway.
Alright, now I'm vaping.
Have a rich history I do it proud.
How do I know how many more kills I need with push daggers?
With what? I mean, you probably hit it by now. The thing is, you can't really update the thing until
Until we're done with this.
yeah.
You want to just keep going until we lose, or?
Yeah.
'Cause I actually do not know how we end this at all.
I mean, well, you can. I think
You just
can end
keep
it by-
going until you lose. If we quit now, it just keep going.
2 a.m.
So-
Hey, Quill. That's what my life is.
My technical.
Target is spotted. Just need to get you into position and
That's some good shit right there.
Oh boys, this is gonna be really hard. I won't put that because I mean not really hard, but it's increased the things by 25 damage, 15 damage and 25 health.
It'll be fine. Just get those headshots. Oh shit! I forgot.
Oh, we should've brought
have been
Saw.
a good thing to bring the drugs. Yeah.
Oh well, that's fine.
We got drills, but I can upgrade at least.
You upgrade the drills again.
Oh.
Fuck this map.
You know that feeling of taking Dayquil and like it just sits in your chest for a few minutes? I absolutely hate that feeling, but it feels so good.
That's
It's some good shit right there. Good shit, good shit, good shit.
It's already a dozer.
I don't see a desert. I
Where?
just see a dead man. I just Jesus Christ, taking right now.
Oh, it's almost like they have the most health out of any of the enemies.
Listen. I can't reload. Okay, I did nothing. It's
Oh, I didn't change the song.
It's fine.
I like how all the drills are breaking down simultaneously. Yeah, this would have been a really good heist to bring the thing on.
It's fine.
I completely forgot.
Can't
that's
you?
important.
You can't. Yeah, I didn't think about it either. Our offense, he barely did.
The one that I didn't ask about.
I mean, then again, these heists used to be an exclusive. Like, if you do another heist and it pops up, you can do it.
Yeah, you had to find like the plans for it inside like a safe.
I think these used to be a heist, an add-on heist to fucking Big Lair or something.
No, basically, in some heists you could find plans for those heists, and then you'd have a chance to do it.
But if you fuck up that one chance, it's done.
Yep.
I used to waste so much C4 on this fucking mission.
I'm about to done. Can you spare
I'm
a
coming.
tasty cupcake?
Enjoy my cupcakes.
Thank you.
It'd be really cool.
I take a shitload less damage when I'm doing shit. Like,
I have an idea
There's
for
one.
the next LAN party. You should do a bit
What?
where I get fucked live on.
No, I don't want to.
We should do a bit where we play Payday. And I'll make fucking little first aid kit rowdies.
Where's effort? Well,
Yeah. But it's for LAN party, which you know I put unnecessary planning into for no reason.
yeah.
Oh shit, I just realized something. Fucking, now that we have Terry in New York, we should have LAN party somewhere. And Waz can come, because Waz lives in New York. Oh, hello. Oh no. Save me!
I'm down.
Thank you. Drills are broken.
There's a fucking dozer stuck in the wall.
Mag's dead. Come on, I heard you just survive death.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Fucking move it. This is
I'm
fucking
not
stressful.
fucking invincible when I'm doing shit. Dozer.
Reloading. Shit. I said there's a package right here from me. That's awesome. Man.
God, I wish there was like some sort of place we could take cover.
Yeah.
That's what sucks about this heist.
Hey Terry.
I have a cupcake.
There you go. Enjoy my strawberry shortcake shit diarrhea.
Oh.
Oh.
I have one too.
Hey, one of the things is open.
I know, but you know, there's kind of. Hey Terry, try to start picking those things.
Oh, I absorbed it. Okay. What does that happen?
Hang on.
Like, why does that happen?
It's a skill you get for having first aid
Just
gets
wanna
maxed
get to
out.
kill some shit.
What makes
I'm
it
reloading.
happen?
I'm fucking splashed.
And I'm down.
Whenever you, oh, I'm coming.
Please, 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 please.
I'm going down,
you
but
fucking
fucking
pick me up with your hair.
I'm going down a second below, so
Container.
I am.
Oh no,
Shit.
it's over now.
Is that be then, boy? Wolf, come on.
We're fucked.
No.
Wolf, come on.
Wait, maybe.
He's up and up. He's up and up. Terry, I'm sorry, but I think you're dead.
Fuck. Okay.
Around.
This is.
Wolf,
it's over
please. Wolf, child, my child, please. You have much to learn.
now. The issue is
Fucking.
You have both Terry and I in custody. Run, take your cover.
Oh, it's nowhere to hide.
Go to the shipping container. Oh.
Well. Good luck there, pal. Were you
the fuck do I
dancing to
do?
the song?
A little bit, I'll be honest. Maybe I can get Wolf. Maybe I can get. Fuck. Okay. Alright.
Well, congrats, you just delayed the inevitable.
Might as well, yeah.
I hate this heist so much. We should just.
Why don't you take somebody as a captive and then we'll...
Oh yeah, you can do that. You have the skill. Bro, you got a sniper.
I've never heard it in game.
What was it?
It's a motherfucking Medi. Oh shit. Fucking put your hands up. Please, thank you.
Well, you got two of them inside of each other. They're fucking
Oh, that's pretty
spooning.
hot.
Hashtag spoon for Terry and Jamie.
I'm gonna say, I don't care. I'm fucking using these things, even though I shouldn't be. But at this point, unfortunately, they're in a really bad spot. So I mean, oh, okay. Oh, thank God. No.
Get that
Oh my
sniper.
God. Oh, geez, that fucking hurt. I'm just gonna.
Fucking Clover's having two conversations at once. Also, I love the looping sound of a broken drill.
Please have mercy.
Oh, okay. Hello, Terrence.
Chicken Boy's back.
Throw Chicken Boy's back. Okay. Come on, come on. Yes. Here you go, Jamal. You are free, and I'm so glad I didn't give up there because I was actually about to give up when I was.
Set me free. Dress me.
I mean-
I will cough again.
I'll be honest. I didn't expect to survive that.
How do I get out of here, bro?
There's two bulldozers over there. I mean, they have shotguns, so they're not really an issue right now, but they're gonna be like in a second.
Well, they're already
But I'm
an
done.
issue for me now.
We'll just,
Excuse me, get inside of the open trucks and cover. We have cover now.
where do we take the loot?
I don't know.
In the trucks.
No, I mean.
Oh, wait, it's right.
where do we
Wait,
take-
wait. Right, wait, wait, wait.
Oh wait, we also have to pick locks too. I hate that feeling of a bagel sitting in your stomach.
Found some.
I got one over here.
I'm gonna bring it over to yours.
That sounds dandy. Got another one back over here.
Alright, let us forever remember, if we ever do a transport heist again, for the love of
Bring
God,
us all.
Bring us all.
Fucking saw, yeah. I'll bring the saw next time. That sniper is hitting.
Jesus. Hey, Jamal, can I have some,
Hey, I still have Microsoft Jacket. It's just
it's some lines probably aren't working. Yeah. It's probably because he has new lines. Steve, can I have a first aid kit?
I guess so.
We have two of them in here, if you mind.
One for now, one
Love
for
you.
later, and then one because fuck you.
It's like whenever you get medicine from a doctor and you can't left over and you fuck balls, give it to a friend.
Yeah.
And then you get arrested for giving people drugs. "30 seconds. He's in a boat, by the way, so where's water?"
Go where water.
Send a mass for fuck's sakes. We're just taking what we need, I'll be honest. I don't think we should really dilly-dally.
Yeah, the thing is, we don't have 5 yet.
Alright, we have 5? Here we do.
We do?
I have like 3 of them over here that I've gotten, and you guys are doing like 3 of them in here.
Oh, no.
Get plenty of things.
This one's completely empty now.
Fucking Wolf. Wolf, take your medicine. Okay, he's teleported, okay.
Oh, hey, look at those. Please don't shoot me. Or he's dead.
Welcome.
I'm down. Jamal behind you.
I got you.
I get you.
See, Terry says it.
I hate you.
Oh, hey.
Sit 30 seconds. What a fucking loser. Okay, never mind.
Way to complain, dickhead. Maybe hit a red light or something.
In a boat?
Yeah.
We have all of them? It's only 4.
Yeah, but a lot more than 4.
That one.
Pedal them to me. I'll throw them in. Oh, hey, look, a sniper. I don't think I can hit you from here. Okay.
Shoot and scoot!
Alright, I'm having issues with the sniper.
Wait, this guy's ex-military? Where is he?
There we go.
Here's your hospital. First aid kit, amigo.
Fuck, they already got another one there?
Not more.
Fucking Wolf goes, it's a fucking medi, and then teleports behind the medic. Nothing personal now, medi. Also, we should probably get the fuck out of here.
No, there's 2 more.
It's not. What the boat leaves.
The assault's about to end. Alright, I think we got it all, unless you guys are getting more.
Yeah, there's
Just in
one
case,
more.
I'm staying at the exit, just in case.
Beat your taser.
Taser!
Watch, there's gonna be money in here.
Go
Some
boy.
money in there.
Let's go. It's safe. Terry, it's safe.
Yeah,
there's
this
a
is
Don't
couple
check in
in
there.
here.
next time.
Don't check in there, Terry. We need to leave.
Look, there's a couple more.
Terry, the dice spot.
God. Hey, Jamal, call Wolf.
Actually, yeah.
Wolf, on me now! How do you pronounce my character's name? Sangrini? Sean Garris?
Sean Garris.
Sanguini.
So what's this fucking animation they added for fucking picking a lock and that kind of stuff? It's fucking weird.
Didn't notice
You
anything.
grasp at the air.
Oh shit, there is an animation. I never noticed that, actually.
Terry, which one are you picking? The one that for you or one that for me?
Right here.
Is that a bulldozer?
Most likely.
Okay, Terry. You're gonna open it up, you're gonna run. Just run, okay?
No, there's another
Don't
one.
look- I'm doing it. Nothing in there, okay, let's go. Please.
Oh shit. Hey, we did it.
Hooray, we did it. We got all of them.
The issue is the only other 2 heists we can choose from are both transports, and then we have Aftershock.
Fuck
isn't
Aftershock.
bad.
I'd rather fucking. I mean, we could try doing it, but it's kind of
Also, now I
hard.
have to select a modifier. Oh, it's just stealth. Fuck it, nah, dude.
Hey, can I go take a piss real quick?
Go for
Yeah.
it. I will
Guys, we're
point out
making
that we've
24
already
million.
gotten $24 million.
24 million.
I mean, I'll be honest with you, and this doesn't sound wrong. You could probably do Hockey faster than this and get more money, but the drops are what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, the drops are pretty good, and the experience. Like I'm probably already hitting level 6.
Hey, I party Infamy already.
Level. Isn't it true that after level 5 Infamy, you can basically just use all of your items and perks and shit?
Yeah, I don't know about that. I know you get everything
Like
free
you don't
now.
have to go
Free,
through
you don't pay for it anymore.
You don't have to go through the leveling and shit again.
I don't know. I can check when. I mean, I'm running Infamy here too, so I mean, we'll find out. I guess together.
We're in this
Here,
together.
1 second. I'm making another hot pocket. Also, I want to put something out. And
Well, in
remember
this
the
case, we're
fucking
taking
shell
a
out here
quick
for a second.
break. I'm gonna go urinate.
Jamal, before you leave,
Yes.
do you ever have a chance? I know you're a hot pocket fucking person, but not fucking hot
Pocket
pockets.
fucking person.
No, but garlic chicken, like the fucking white pizza one, the lean pocket is actually really fucking good. Like it's actually really fucking good. It's like a white pizza in my mouth. Also, I want to say one more thing. I don't know if you heard it.
Take it easy.
When,
Wallace.
Have a good night, was.
Enjoy your 8
No, whenever-
class.
Whenever we were at the show, and the Electric Six was like, oh yeah, go buy our album. I leaned over to Cupper and went, so that's where he gets his show.
Yeah. Yeah.
He started losing his shit. Okay, go take a fucking piss.
Yeah. I'm gonna listen to you
I'm gonna make
guys
a hot pocket.
the entire time.
Oh,
Also, I
pretty
love
sure
the
I'll
fact
be shitting.
that Terry is
the
utilizing
Pittsburgh
the
toilet?
Pittsburgh toilet.
Might as well, if it's there.
Yeah, but like, Terry.
All right, have we settled which one we're doing?
Hey Terry.
We're probably gonna do fucking nothing.
Terry.
I mean, we're probably gonna do
What?
I gotta ask, how close is that Pittsburgh toilet in relation to your desk?
About 15 feet.
That's not as bad because every single time you use it, we can hear it.
Just
Just wondering. Because the really funny thing is, like, I just imagine, like, you sitting at your desk, like, you don't even have a chair, it's just the toilet is what you're sitting on.
No, it's actually pretty fun. Wait.
okay. The question is, why have you not done that yet? Why haven't you moved your desk over the toilet so you can just sit on the 24/7?
Because it's pretty
Really
low.
not safe.
And my desk is pretty high.
Well, put it to like the left so you can like move your desk over, your chair over, and just sit on the toilet.
I considered it. So, have we...
Oh no, Jamal's taking a piss. Just listen to this looping music. That's gonna be annoying after a while.
only got 54 kills that time.
I got... Oh. I really want to point out that I'm really surprised you survived that, because the moment you both went down, I kind of started screaming.
Yeah, you kind of forgot, like, the entire purpose of your character.
We
Making
dodged, yeah.
hostages.
Oh no, I
Dodging
was
and
taking
making
hostages. Yeah. Thank God I had Wolf there, though, because he probably saved me a few times. Or he picked me up, first of all.
So what, we get like 1/4 the cash, the rest goes into our hedge fund.
Yeah, our meme funds.
That's still
Come
a
on.
pretty decent fucking amount. I get a
Oh, yeah,
shit
not bad.
off of this.
I farted.
I mean, I figured if 50 feet you did. Which
Alright, please, for the love of God, end this fucking music.
Well, which one are we doing?
I don't know. Which one do you really want to do?
I mean,
If
I think after talk would be too hard.
transports, we need to have the thing with us.
Yeah, I think so. I think Terry, if you we should do Park. Park is me. Use this one.
And then we'll do park. Actually, I can.
Okay.
Oh wait, I can re-roll it.
You can.
You want me to re-roll?
You sure you want to? You sure you want to waste that
Fuck it,
reroll?
We'll just do park.
Let's just
Let's
do
do Park.
Park.
Let's do
Park
Park.
is pretty easy. We've done them.
Gauge mod curry.
It's literally the
So
exact
grab the
same.
team of, okay, I didn't get to read the whole.
I can bring the saw this time.
Yeah, bring this on.
Okay. I will bring the saw.
So put on a good show for them, gentlemen. You've got Jensen trying
Load out.
to deal with.
On a side note,
I can
peaches and
actually.
cream
Oh, 1
vape,
second.
Dayquil and Pepsi does not make a great combination.
If you want me to,
Go on.
I think I have. I'm gonna call it. I'm gonna call it this, and you're gonna know what it is. I have a fucking build called Shape My Asshole. It's a shape charge. I can just fucking go heavy. and we can have fucking
I mean-
shape charges.
We could have sandwiches.
If you really think it's
Actually,
worth it, do you have
no, I
Inspire?
won't,
'Cause
because
Inspire is a very
I
helpful
don't.
thing.
Yeah, I'm not going. I'm gonna keep my
Just
fast
stick
snipe.
what you got.
I call it fast snipe. Shape my asshole. Cross my bow and two SMG, one shit show. Turning the fruit. Okay. That's it. Let's
Mixture of
go.
Vape juice. I almost said Nikolai. Dayquil, actually.
Vape juice and Nikolai. It's like Jason's normal night.
Yeah, actually.
I'll change the song.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Thank you.
I'm gonna like right remind on my hair
wait,
most of the
wait,
time.
wait, what the fuck was that one called? Oh, we already used that one. Never mind.
I mean,
I just put in yeah. Wait, how haven't I put full force forward in here yet?
I'll full force my forward. I don't know what that means. Let's go. My hot pocket almost fell.
I like the heists in this game that take place during the day. This game has a very good daytime effect.
Yeah.
In that is like it's not overly bloomy. Like it's just enough to make it look good, but then again it's probably just pre-made assets and shit. So
We're not gonna drill both of them, you fuck ass. Jesus.
I was waiting for Jamal to do it because there's actually 3 of them.
Sorry, I wasn't paying attention. I was too amazed by how beautiful this fucking 3-year-old game is. 4-year-old
I was letting Jamal
game.
up to him because they're 4-year-old.
Hard to believe this game's been out for as long as it has.
I mean, no. Cool. Once you imagine it's your first day on the job, you get put in the payday gang because everyone else is dead. Like you get
Side
paid
note,
against the
there's
payday
actually
gang.
another one that we can drill.
There's 4 of them?
3.
I think you got 3. I think you got one of their shit.
There's always 3.
Shit, we were gonna be. I bet you we kind of made it so now I'm not gonna die sometime now. God damn it.
I'll get it.
Okay.
Have you upgraded them all, Jamal?
Yeah. If I place them, we can upgrade it.
I didn't. I placed 2 of them, so.
Well, I mean, I also shit, we already got a Dazer.
This Luger is fucking nice.
I don't remember if that was a mod that I had that made it so if you punch the drill or whatever, it just repairs.
It was the. I mean, I think they made it into
I think they made it an
a
actual perk, but I definitely have that perk. I do like this reflection that has nothing to do with the actual world.
Welcome to payday.
Yeah.
Oh god, I'm down.
I mean, Fallout 4 also did that.
Why is Wolf teleporting so much now?
I don't know. Inconsistencies, I guess.
It's a fucking medi.
He has the Chaos Emeralds.
Fucking hate you.
What?
Just I'm just imagining that. I'm sitting here, fucking.
Hey guys, look, it's a creature's ref.
This entire game's a creature serpents.
Oh yeah, the creatures were here. Too bad they're staying there. Gone.
In the grave.
I will never forget about the time when a fruit emailed Kucher asking if he could be a creature after Gassy Mexican got kicked out.
What do you do?
Nothing. He's never acknowledged it.
He just got pissed off. Gassy did, I don't know if he would. Hey Dozer boy, we got you a dozer.
Those are
Really? Oh, me?
Please?
Oh, I have to reload. 1 second. There's if I can reload.
I'm basically just juggling between all these fucking drills right now.
Once they're open, let me know. I'll start.
Well, that's one way to deal with a taser.
Oh, I'm going down.
What up if I fucking kill you, dude? Die, you son of a bitch! I'm the best it's ever been. I missed.
Starting to drill.
You mean song?
Saw. Shut up.
Well, we got 3 of them right here. This one's about to open up over here, Jerry.
One over there just stopped working.
Which one are you storing him in?
Fucking just keep
There, we're
them
doing
the
this
first-
one.
Throw them in the one that's down there. Yeah,
Sure.
keep them. Yeah. I mean, unless you want to bring them over here, whatever.
Remember,
I
they
don't
have to go through all of us in order to get to that one.
Fair enough.
There's like fucking 3 or 4 in this one. 3. The other one.
This used to be the way they make money back in this game. Before there was heists that paid over like a couple million.
Stay still.
I'm getting back in this game. To be honest, I was kind of feeling off, but like that's who maps become.
Oh yeah, that's exactly where I feel right now. I mean, then again, you gotta remember we paid this game fucking every day for an entire summer.
All right,
We
got
set
a
up a lot
couple
of
more here.
games. I'm gonna start transporting him. I'm gonna start throwing towards you guys.
I don't have a thing on me. I thought I did.
No.
Hey, go, Jamal.
Fuck, I thought I caught that.
Didn't.
Hey, Jerry.
Hey, Jamal. You can catch him.
Hey, noob.
I'm going down again.
Oh, fuck's sake. The fucking many.
I have money. Save me.
Dude, buy a new life and make sure you buy a second one in case that one dies.
I need some help over here.
I might go down again. Depending on how I dodge.
Oh my god, just fucking take my
Is that
brownies.
is that fucking
Yeah. He's down. Got him.
brownies?
I'm down. Poor guy.
I'm down.
The fuck? Oh, wait, have I inspired someone recently? Terry, it's right. Shit.
Piece of shit.
Huh?
No, sorry, no. I was wondering who I inspired recently. I couldn't pick him up.
Did I get one of our bags?
Here, Terry. Ugh.
We're gonna shit.
Oh boy. Can noob get to the thing without going down? Spoiler alert, I'm gonna cheat. Never mind, I guess I can't. Okay. About to go down.
Is that it?
That's all of them.
Let's go.
Not too bad. I saw 2 dozers come out of nowhere. That was fucking scary.
Damn, we're doing pretty well.
Ah, great. Now we got loud modifiers. Medic heal
Hey,
cooldown is
breakout.
20% faster. Enemies cannot be staggered from damage, and the tasing knockout effect of the taser now knocks a player out 50% faster.
Okay, hold on. So repeat them.
Alright, so medic's heal cooldown is 20% faster, which means they'll heal faster.
Okay.
Enemies will not be staggered from damage.
That's like the. Oh no.
The
No,
worst
don't do
one we
that.
could pick.
No. No.
I have
Tasing
I have a
knockout
skill
effect
that's
with
is
taser.
that's is. Go
Now
ahead.
knocks a player out 50% faster.
Hey, it locks a player outfit though.
Yes.
Do you said?
The tasing out knockout effect of the taser now knocks out a player 50% faster.
Oh. I would say medic.
Yeah, the medic's probably the most manageable.
Yeah, if you do that stagger one, that's like my entire shtick.
So we can easily just do breakout.
Breakout. Yeah, I was about to say, let's just do fucking breakout.
However, Terrence, do you happen to have shape charges, or Noob, do you have shape charges? Or does anybody have lockpicking skills?
No. We'll be fine.
Alright, in that case, we'll just go fucking balls blazing. Bane doesn't improve the needless killing of civilians. Payday trivia.
Shotguns can take down multiple cops in a single shot. Aim for a crowd.
I have gotten like quadruple kills.
I mean, Hawks.
I just heard the dentist. Not you, Hawks. I mean, old.
Alright, now we need to have a very classic
Okay, so.
song.
So it really sucks. We started doing this at like max level-ish areas, so we're not going to really benefit a lot from this XP, but hey.
I will.
There you go.
No, you won't, because I mean, you're the higher level, you're highest level here.
Technically.
Oh yeah, that's right. Whatever, it's fun.
I don't care.
I mean, the money's also
A lot of
nice.
ammo.
I mean,
Oh,
we're
yeah.
making what, like 30 million at this point?
I mean, money's not really an option, like an object anymore at this point. It's just a statistic now. But hey. I'm gonna, I'm gonna buy, I guess we're gonna need one of these. Cherry's
yeah,
lost my
only get one.
Continental. It's a guy, no, only one wants to, we can only do one. So I was thinking maybe self-healer. That one's been pretty good, I think.
What does self-healer do?
Players
have
recover
a
some health from
description
killing an
for
enemy.
this.
This only can occur every 5 seconds.
Fuck it.
You wanna make it?
Go for it. I can't spend
Okay.
anything.
Oh,
Ooh,
I could have gotten one
hello.
too.
We can only do one.
I could have gotten one too.
Really? Shit, sorry, I didn't know you were rich.
Look at this.
Oh, I'm rich.
That's the name of the stream.
It's fucking payday.
I said it's fucking payday, fella.
And scene.
Good job, guys. Crime room's over. So like how we're now rescuing Hawks, and even though we just like a few days ago
Did the other part.
look, it's still alive.
Fucking hell, that was loud.
To quote Churchill, fucking hell, that was loud.
Okay, we
Oh god.
Oh wait, I gotta keep up tradition. Give me that.
Give me that.
Give me that. Give me that. Always gotta get the fucking overkill hockey pitcher. This is my favorite Payday song, actually. Just because I'm always thinking of ass, titties, ass and titties, ass,
Yeah,
ass,
bro.
titty, ass and titty.
Look out, medic.
Ooh, what else?
God, I forgot
Titties.
where to go.
What else?
Yeah.
Ah, shit.
Oh shit, I'm down.
Local men eat shit.
Live on Twitch.
I'm sure someone betrayed me.
Pretty sure
Oh,
somebody
in-
has probably eaten poop at some point on fucking IRL.
Oh, of course.
Fucking
Probably happening right now.
Ice Poseidon's like, yo dude, look at this. And he just fucking
Look at this turd,
shits
man.
in his own mouth. Alright, I tried to shoot that, but I couldn't. You better not flush those down, because Daddy wants to inspect them.
It's wrong.
Yeah, I figured.
Don't you flush that toilet! You leave those logs for me to inspect! I want to see
Oh,
what you've
God.
done.
The phrase, I heard you, we're moving. I hate that thing.
Can you guys move that?
Oh, god damn. Hey, Joel, put some... Never mind.
Put down what?
I was just... You should probably put that in first aid kit.
Yeah,
This might, why did we do Hawkson again?
because it was the best option, I guess.
Oh, I'm blind. Just keep your head down and we'll be fine.
Only this part of the heist is hard. Once we get to the second part, it's fine.
Yeah.
fucking. I like how this is the only map that Microsoft Jacket works on, by the way.
Just run, fucking smack the car and right back. Sorry, eat that cupcake before you leave. Don't leave that in your plate.
What?
There's a cupcake at your feet. You missed a cupcake. Oh, you did.
Better use that.
Go get that cupcake.
Eat that cupcake. I don't want it.
Wasteful person.
I'm not hungry. Eat it. We're not racist. This family don't waste food.
Jesus.
I just don't want the cupcake, Dad. I'm diabetic.
Diabetic. Jesus.
No,
No,
I just
mine
want to
is
see what
diabetic.
happens.
Jesus.
Sometimes my uncle uses me to help kids into his van. Go down.
The fuck was that sound I heard?
Yeah, I want to
probably
kind of
you,
start playing as Dallas so I can hear. Ah! I need.
It's my own. Put a fucking drill down.
Oh yeah, I guess that would help.
Be cool. Just want to stop the people from
Sorry,
shooting
I'm
me down.
not
You
used
can
to
do that.
doing everything in this fucking game.
I mean, if we had put it down, you would have upgraded. Hello, Dozer. Where'd you come from? You
I'm gonna
back,
put down
please?
an ammo bag if anybody needs them.
Hi, Dozer. There's a Dozer inside of me.
Got it.
Okay.
Got him. Gotta move back here, up.
Oh, fucking Christ.
Those are behind you.
Back here, up.
That one.
Here, up.
Could use a cupcake, but you know.
There you go. Fuck.
Oh yeah, I forgot there's a fucking gun truck.
Gun truck.
Gun chuck, right? Drill.
There's like 3 bulldozers up there.
It's fine.
It's really starting to make me angry. For whatever reason, my fucking mouse keeps implying that it's dying.
Hey, that's happened to me too. It's the most too. Make sure the batteries are plugged in if you're plugged in. If not, then it's just gonna stay there forever. Most likely the batteries there, yeah. It won't. If it's plugged in, it won't die. Don't worry. Mine's still all the time. I don't have batteries in mine though. It just
But the
things that it
red
had.
blinking light makes me really self-conscious.
So, to get new batteries, throw them in there.
What does this take? Double A's, triple A's?
I don't know, but they have to be rechargeable or you're gonna fuck yourself.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I have
Just in
double
your hand,
A's
explode.
on hand, but I don't have anything that's rechargeable.
Meh.
I mean, then again, now that I think about it, I've gone through this entire same mouse for fucking years.
Yeah, we both had the same mouse for a while.
Yeah. I actually
Guys,
have
come on.
10 next to
Make
me.
sure you use the truck for cover. Don't you remember the gun
I
truck?
need to go use this ammo bag.
I mean, I dodged
Don't
90% of
forget
it.
to use the cupcake.
Why is
Cupcakes.
anybody coming?
Grabbing ammo. Grabbing logs for me to expect. Expect that car.
Here we go. What you did with that bulldozer back there was a bit.
Draw fire from the truck, gang.
You know, I absolutely love the fact that
Can I get a cupcake?
Hoxton, yeah, here.
Nope.
I like that Hoxton will start talking about things that canonically haven't happened yet. To characters that aren't even here, by the way.
Guys, I'm getting tased. I don't know. Okay. Oh fuck! Another gun truck. Wolf! What the hell?
Yeah, that's
Did
what
you
the
see that?
That's what the
He
AI
just
does
stood there.
for this fucking part. Alright, as always, Noob has the ticket, and then he's gonna die and fuck us over. I miss having my sentry gun for this part. Alright, now start lockpicking, boys.
Oh man, I wish I had more of that hot pocket, but I don't want to make another one. my life.
You know, it'd be a really interesting thing to do. Starting off with a fresh infamy, and then starting off a crime spree, and then just going, like, trying to go entirely until you hit
Die.
the next infamy.
Yeah, until you get like enough experience to get you to level 100 again.
Yeah. Like, that'd be interesting if you can keep it going for that long. Like, if you're that good to do that. We should try it. After this, we could do every single heist in Grand Theft Auto 5 in order.
Yeah.
While crab walking.
In first person.
And third.
With our
Same time.
monitors off.
Our headsets on. Just it. I just want to be able to hear things.
And we can give each other blowjobs in the middle, right?
No.
Right?
We could speedrun it too.
Please. Every time I get a blue dub, I speedrun it.
Any
Please.
sexual act with me is a fucking speedrun.
I'm always world record.
Wonder what the world record for fastest blowjob is.
I hate you.
There's a Japanese game show for.
How do we sign up?
I'm not even kidding. There's actually a Japanese.
There's a Japanese
Being able to
game show
last
for
long.
everything. It's Silent
Well,
Library.
Can I abduct near cupcakes?
Oh!
What about that?
I just tried putting one down on front of the dozer's face.
I'm going down.
Here. You know, you could pick up the thing.
I can't.
Oh. Well, for me, it said you hadn't gone down yet.
Yeah, it was because I was.
Yeah, it's one song.
Yeah, it didn't have the UI.
Oh, hi, boys.
Put you guys in the elevator.
Who's shitting these pants?
Somebody shit my pants. You shit your pants? I don't know, but somebody took off my pants, put them on, shit in them, took them off his body, put them back on mine. Did they make that a lot quicker?
Nope, it's always been really fast.
I don't remember that being that fast.
Stop the truck.
Stop the truck.
I think we did it before he actually got here.
Okay, these all spawn there. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really mind-boggling to do this after doing the second part of Fox and Breakout.
Yeah.
Oh no! I hope we get first one break sometime during this. Then we can overdrill it.
No.
I feel like
that?
Terry
Nope.
was there with us for that.
Hey, there's a random civilian.
You know, I gotta ask, why do we have to remove the armor plating for this?
Guys, we have to go fast.
That makes no sense to me.
What? We gotta go fast. It's really fucking heavy.
I guess that makes sense.
That's a
Oh,
robbery.
metal heavy.
Terry,
I
come over here.
get. I understand.
Terry, don't go over there.
I just hear Microsoft Jacket going blah 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 blah.
Yo, wankers. Okay, there's. Go. What's fucking Go Bank? Ooh, 3, damn.
Hotline Miami, please God.
Hotline Miami?
No.
Well, I don't know what airport.
Fuck the airport. Well, it looks easy.
Airport.
Fuck, let's go.
Alright.
Because I'm not doing fucking Go Bank. Because fuck Go Bank. Oh, we shouldn't have picked airport.
Which one's airport? Is this part of Rats?
Rats. We heard the rats.
Hey,
Come
so
to sit
that
up
is
by
a-
another birthday.
Do I need a saw?
Yes.
I don't know.
Sweet. Weapon cases, Jamal. Weapon cases in the fucking airport.
Yeah, fuck it, just bring it.
Are you sure? Yeah, fuck it, just bring it. Yeah.
Worst case scenario, you
When-
can use it as a melee weapon.
Stop fucking people's face off. That's Jamal's song.
I did.
Good.
Yeah,
And we're
just
fucking at
because you
70.
insisted, I'll
Oh,
change it to
one
something else.
second. One second. I'm just checking out. Payday.
So what the fuck
The
was
average is
that?
probably like 300 or some shit.
Oh yeah, I'm
It said
seeing.
the
I'm
word
seeing what
payday,
the.
and for some reason you had reverb on it. Like you
Payday.
You went payday.
Let's see if it. See if I'm sorry. I was looking to see what like the.
I gotta
If
get
there's
my money's
like.
worth out of this thing.
what's it called? If it's actually like tiers,
Tears. The Trail of
like
Tears.
tier, hate you, like tier, like this, like comparison. Fuck it, I don't know. Okay, Rudy.
What melee weapon are you guys using?
The fucking electrical brass knuckles.
They're apparently the meta right now.
I mean, I mean that's what the meta was last time I checked. It's mostly just because you can if it's basically a taser. If you hit somebody, you punch somebody, they get tased and they stop moving and they shoot in there.
Okay, the airport is just down the hill. Cut through the fence and find
Now I remember this one.
There we go.
Me too.
Fucking hate this mission.
down there.
The downside, it's pretty easy.
I've
It's
never
pretty fast.
heard
I mean,
this segment referred to as airport before, though.
what's
We
the
might
airport?
as well fucking stealth it until we get to. Okay, never mind. Okay. That's not even a fucking. Oh, never mind. It is.
Plane must have dropped off the guns for Mendoza.
I was thinking that you just shot a civilian.
Oh, so many of them there.
This is the correct hangar.
Oh, you can saw these. Good. Sorry, you saw these.
To the van.
Huh?
You can saw these. Come here.
Looks like we hit the spot. Those are the guns.
Where are you?
In the hangar. These things you can saw.
You know, we could
Thank
very
fucking God.
easily speedrun this, but just by going through and fucking.
Destroying them.
Yeah.
So I did that.
I mean, we might as well
Fuck it.
take them.
Destroy the weapons or bring them to the van.
I don't know exactly what goes into it destroying them, because we've never ever done that.
You shoot. You remember you shoot the fucking thing and throw them in there.
Better get moving, boys. The longer it takes, the more.
Fuck it. Just bring them. Just bring them. Just bring them. You have time. I thought we had time. I guess not. Maybe shit. They're already here.
Looks like it shows a good track. I think.
Actually, like backstab's pretty good. This is backstab, right? Yeah, look at that.
Yeah, backstab.
Damn.
Don't move!
It should be all of them.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
need 8.
I'm taking one of these things because I'm low hurt. Okay. There's more hangers out there, so remember that.
Well, I mean, there's
There's
also
one, isn't there?
weapons scattered around inside the other hangar.
Oh, so did you open the other truck?
Yeah, it's people.
The Terry's truck over here. Fucking hate this map so much.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of this one. The only thing I remember about this one is the video of Mario in a top hat. Whenever he modded the shit out of his game. And
Yeah.
then fucking did this one, and he shot the gun that turned into the My Little Pony sound effects and crashed his game.
The bright side, we have to do the upper mission, so. Here. Nice catch.
Yeah, it's coming back to me.
That's a bulldozer. Be careful, Jamal, when you're not there. He's down the ramp to the
Don't worry,
left.
I'm fine.
Oh, you guys missed one.
Alright, never mind. I thought I'd be fine.
Yeah,
The whole
he's
map.
right fucking there.
Alright, dude, come down here.
I was doing them all the rest of these down.
I mean, we could just get these other 2 and then be done. I don't want to spend any more time at the airport than I need to.
Hey, Wolf, come here. Wolf. Call him, call Wolf, call Wolf. Never mind. Okay, never mind, we're going back. Okay, nope. No, Wolf, give me the back. Nope.
And then Noob had a brain.
I turned the corner and that one alleyway there was 3 dozers and 2 medics. No, let's go, Derry, let's go. Okay, let's go. Let's pull out. Get it for child protection. I tried fucking see what was sport, sorry. Fucked up my joke. Oh, thank good.
No.
Oh, I got 4 points for that.
Oh, fantastic selections.
Slaughterhouse.
Oh
Slaughterhouse
no,
is from
these
the
are
first
all
game.
awful.
I can re-roll it.
Good to go. I'll get you guys cleared to the safe house.
Yeah,
I
we will.
mean, yeah, we roll, yeah.
Soldiers, do this.
Nothing but
Guys,
go bank.
34 million. I guess the loot drop cards are the ones we really
Hey,
care
Big
about.
Bank.
Oh, Jamal, if you want to do big bank, we can.
We're not over.
Let me rephrase it, Jamal. If you want to end on go bank, we will. Cause I mean, yeah, it's not gonna. I don't know how well it's gonna end. Cool.
1957.
Escape plan. Wait, is this
Oh.
big bank? This is not go bank. This is oh, it's I picked. I thought it was a different bank. I thought this was a fucking payday one bank.
This is KD1
We're doing
Bank.
fucking. No, it's not.
It isn't?
It's not. Nope.
Oh, wait, that's
pick
First
bus
World
stop.
Bank.
Yep. We're gonna fucking lose.
Man, this isn't that bad. Terry,
Oh,
go into
this
pre-planning and go into escape plan. Pick bus stop.
Oh Jesus. Oh shit. Okay, did drop it some ammo down in the office. Fuck it. Short. Short.
Short in the main entrance.
Okay. Ah shit.
Well, we have no more favors. Really.
Terry, bring your saw with you if you don't mind.
Wait, what can the saw do in this one?
Open the fucking gates.
Terry, bring your saw with you. Fuck.
Did you say fuck?
This will pay.
Alright, I got it.
If you want to. You know, I mean, if you don't, we can. You don't need it. I'm saying, but if you want to bring it,
I mean, the shotgun that I have is pretty baller, so.
and we'll do the sound alarm because fuck it,
Do we get any?
and
dead
see if it
drops, though?
floats. Oh yeah, I got some ammo.
Okay.
I
And
got.
Terry has
Wait,
ammo.
you want to get one of the other gauge boosts? I got the rapid reloader.
I can't get.
I don't have enough. I only have 2 coins left.
Yeah,
Well,
re-rolling.
Jamal,
is
pick a good song. Pick a song that you're going to enjoy listening to for the next 20 minutes.
Alright.
And let me first that you're gonna like hate.
That felt good.
Ooh, good song. Yes.
Oh, I forgot to mute my microphone in OBS. My bad. Sorry if anybody's actually watching. I blew my nose. I blew my nostrils. Hey, look, our van's over here. That's totally not suspicious or anything. What's going on? What's his name? Bile? No, wait, that's.
I wonder if
that's
it's
Bile.
suspicious that a person that.
What the fuck's this guy's name?
What were you saying, Terry? He's fucking. He's a rat. I don't know.
Rat? Is
Alright,
no, it's not rat.
you guys want to try to stealth something?
You know the drill.
Well, the thing is we can't really stealth it because none of us have stealth builds.
Look around for key cards. The bank manager. Anything that might help.
Well, it's kind of half-ass stealth like we usually do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just get everything set up for a minute.
Stealth until we go fucking wrong. Hey, look at this newspaper. Daily Washington. I think you can just casually walk into fucking people's offices and they don't give a shit. I don't remember what the fuck we're looking for. Server room.
Fuck this burp music. God damn it.
The only thing I remember about stealthing this mission is you make the guy throw up.
That's the server room. Get inside and get
Hey, I found it. If somebody can get a key card, that'd be baller.
Look around.
Is this the manager? I don't know.
I'd like to speak to the manager, please.
Fuck, you're triggering me.
Where the fuck? Hold
This
on.
guy's got some really
Let's
bad fucking
let's
carpal tunnel.
let's hold on for a second. Where the fuck's the entrance to the vault?
Hey, I found a key card. The only issue is it's right in front of a dude.
No,
What do you mean entrance to the vault.
usually it's oh Jesus. Oh, it's in here. Okay, good. Because usually it's like yeah, I see now. It's in a different area. Let's see.
I was about to say it's always in the same spot. I mean, it's just on a different floor usually.
I mean here. Where the fuck is it at?
The key card?
Yeah.
Go into that office that you're in right now. At the very end, there's a guy with a desk, and he's got a key card. Other way. Other side. This guy over here with man.
Oh, he's with fucking Yeah, about that. 1 second. Please hold.
Well, now we've
Hello?
alerted the attention of fucking everybody by putting on
Hold on. We got this.
run.
Huh, fuck you.
Oh, I killed a civilian. That's right. I shouldn't do that. Get it?
Good. It.
Hey, at least we got a little bit head start on this.
Yeah, I guess that helps. I wanted to make the man throw up though. Oh god, I forgot about this fucking part.
Fuck, it's right. Okay, Jamal, you wanna do it?
Yeah, I'm already here.
Yeah, I'll fucking go back to the thing.
I forgot what we have to look for here.
Okay, let me know when you're ready. Listen to the beep, remember?
Alright, listen.
1 second. Let's go now, and right about now.
Any ATMs in here?
Let me try this one.
Let me do it again once again. Hold on. No, you're not.
I already did it. That's not it. I can already tell that's not it. How long does this take?
Like 2 or 3 minutes.
Fuck.
Might as well start doing the fucking, the main part of this. Well, you two take care of that. Try the one that you try to think. I'm gonna go up here and get the fucking drill ready, remember? Or at least get the drill, like, moved over.
I'm just gonna keep doing them until it gives me the thing, because it didn't take as long as I thought it would. It's a fucking
That was a few minutes. Like we were swapping boss, and now we just now have Wolf.
I mean, that's great.
We have not like changed. I'm
He's
okay
got
with
the
that. Yeah.
Chaos Emeralds, dude.
He's being this high up in paydays makes me scared because I can just fucking
Fall off and die.
yeah.
Hey, we got it.
Look at that. Hey guys, look up. Come on up here.
Oh shit, there's a lot of fucking people down here. Okay. Hello. Can you think you can inspire me from up there?
Unfortunately not.
Damn. Well, at least I got Wolf.
They're taking shot like from inside the bank. They're taking shots at me.
Oh god, might be going down.
Right there, yeah. Do you want to get that?
Yeah, I think you can stop the door. Yeah, I can. Oh, I'm still. Give me a minute. I can. If you want to go up there, I think that you can stop the door anyway. Keep you covered though. I tried to at least. You saw the door?
Can,
Saw
but
the
I'm
door.
already drilling it. Never mind.
Door.
1 second. Fuck you. Is Wolfing you?
No.
Fuck you. Move that. Okay, good.
I don't even know
Oh,
where
how the
fucking
fuck
Wolf
did you
is.
guys get up there?
The fucking ladder in the back.
15
coming.
seconds, dude. Pick up the pace. Okay, bye. Oh my god.
Now help me up.
Well, whenever you go down, silly. Silly Bo Billy.
Oh my god, that was the skin of my fucking. Oh,
Sure could use
Jesus. Cupcakes all around, please. Thank you. That's all I need. Thank you. I'm going back up there now. With the fucking. With my asshole puckered.
Is that the White House? I guarantee you that's gonna be the last heist of this game.
Got it.
I think that would be a very bad idea for a company to make about saying about raiding the White House. That's a one-way trip to fucking getting. Oh yeah, by the way, that
I
happens.
was about to say, what the fuck was that noise? Oh, hello. I'm probably gonna. Yep, there we go. Somebody care to help?
Hang on.
Coming.
Because I kind of forgot that ladders are a thing, and also there's a concert of people down here. There's more fucking enemies down here than there were people at the Electric Six concert.
Oh fuck. Not good.
None good. Oh shit. Okay. Fuck out of my way.
Oh no.
Where's the doctor bag? Doctor bag? Hello, doctor bag.
I'm coming.
Because I'm black and white now.
I'm
Put
down.
some ammo up here, guys. Wait, where are we going next?
You're fine. You just stay up there. Let me just hop into more.
Put it in here.
I'm taking him with you. I'm one way from being dead, so. I'm coming.
So I should stay up here.
That would be a good idea.
Snipers! What are snipers?
Jesus Christ, so many people in here. They all fall. Oh my god. Fuck it. Fuck this.
I threw a grenade.
So do I.
Fuck. There's a grenade.
Well, it's fine. We killed whoever. We killed the medics. He healed us the first time. Jesus Christ, there's so many fucking people in here. Yeah, I'm gonna just snatch up this ammo. Cool.
Shield.
The fucking shield. I'm going down.
To be fair, you had to have a high IQ to understand Rick and
Get him all.
Don't forget to get your mission equipment over here, boys.
Hey, wait, did you already rewire everything?
Yeah, we're just waiting for the
It's alright, you can
time
go downstairs now.
Climbing a crane. Hold.
Why?
I don't know.
Oh.
It's here.
That's where I was to pull
He
this
just wants
little
the,
piggy
he
in.
just wants the zip line down. I almost said zip tie
Kinda.
down.
Where's this?
How much time do we have? I don't remember where the fuck this. Look at it.
You haven't fought up there, Terry?
I'm coming down.
I'm scared of heights.
I vomited off the side and it hit a man in the head.
Yeah, you can see Brace Aetherium over there. It's pretty cool, isn't it?
Too bad it's all just reusable assets in fucking every engine. Shut up, you're not supposed to move that.
Oh, I see people. I'm going down again.
Well, don't die. Here, you gotta come over and grab this thing from us. This little box. Grab something. Down here.
Oh my god, I can't pick it up. It's like covered in shit. Hang on.
Oh no, you got it.
You got it. You got it. You got it.
Oh, okay.
It was just 9 of them
It's
deep ago.
mission equipment.
You might even need it. Usually we don't, but
It's
rather
just
than have all of us have it.
I'm trying to vape. Stop shooting me in the ass.
Help.
Yeah, I'll put some cupcakes at the door. The door. Enjoy my Mexican cupcakes. My hot Mexican cupcakes.
Why are they so spicy? Does anybody need ammo?
I put Tabasco in them. Save the ammo for right now.
Yeah, we're staying here. We're gonna be a lot farther away.
Yeah, we're gonna be like inside this wall for a very long time. By the way, you bought the drill, right?
Right here. Everyone grab a piece.
Take him over here.
Parents.
Grab the bag.
It's not one. It's only
I got it. Knock, knock.
I am the beast that knocks on the door.
I'm the beast that steals the cash. Rolling this, you'll get a nasty rash.
Shooting skew. I wonder how many shooting skewets you hear like within a daily like a normal. Oh, that fucking hurt. Throwing a grenade. Oh Jesus Christ! I panic whenever I see a fucking poker.
I just realized
As you
once my
well should.
fucking alarm tomorrow is gonna be goddamn terrifying. Because I haven't played Payday in
This
such
is-
a long time that fucking
It's
tomorrow
not
when I
that sad
wake
now.
up it's gonna be and I'm gonna fucking like
Who is guys? Ex-military? Oh shit! I need ammo. Oh, let's use my rifle round.
Oh, hang on. Back
Put it over here. Put it like put it by the drill, because you're gonna be needing it for like this up and then. Anyway. Thank you.
Well, I've only got the one left. Do we save it?
Oh, it's fine. I save it. Save it.
save it. Because we're gonna need it a lot whenever on the inside. Shoot,
I just. I'll just use my oh my go down. I can go down.
Scoot my pants. Oh fuck.
I'm going down. Come on.
I got it.
Help, please. No spicy in here. I'll be honest.
Alright, we can take spicy. I had buffalo wings today, and actually not buffalo wings, buffalo fries.
I'll be honest. I actually had Bermandi's wings for the first time the other day.
Permanis.
It's not bad.
Whenever
I got
Terry
spicy
comes here, we
garlic.
have to get him Permanis because he'll probably fall in love with it. Terry, how do you like coleslaw?
No.
Ugh.
Well, neither do I, but either way.
This place
How do you
is
agree with that?
so crazy. It puts French fries on its sandwiches.
It's like every place here.
Shut up.
Like fucking like fucking Burgatory does it.
They have a
Fucking
Pittsburgh.
Cheese
they
does
have-
it.
They have a Pittsburgh toilet in every area of
Every stall.
Every single Permanis place has a Pittsburgh toilet at every.
That's probably actually-
at every booth.
And it's probably the first part's probably actually true. It's probably every Pittsburgh in everyone would. Except for the new ones that are like built, because I mean they literally built one on Waterfront and it took them like 3 weeks and it was just done. So there, you put ammo down over there. There's a bulldozer in that in there. You said did you already put ammo bag down like back there?
No, that's
Like,
no, I
not
put
like-
them up on the roof.
Okay,
You put
I've
one
never
down.
done this one. I didn't know if we were gonna go back up there or not.
you're fine. You're fine. I was
We really
curious. I was
aren't,
saying
but we
where
can
to
definitely
make.
make a detour for it.
I'm fine. I'm just curious. I'm self-sustaining. I just walk from up into there.
I mean, you just gotta mow down an entire group of people and run in and take their ammo.
Got it.
I got it.
Okay.
Going.
I wish GTA had heists like this.
I'm going down.
It does in the single player. 4 of them.
Oh yeah, that's right. I
4
mean, the
whole
GTA
place.
I care about.
Get up and show these bastards.
Okay. Were you on top of those stairs a little while ago?
Yes.
Okay, because I guess when you helped me, it fixed it decent. Because I saw I got you and then you teleport next to me. I'm like,
No,
what the
I have
fuck?
the Chaos Emerald now.
You stole those Chaos Emeralds?
Yeah, I stole them from Wolf.
Can I have a cupcake?
You mean
Cap
me?
Chaos Emerald?
Chaos Emeralds?
I don't
Yeah.
remember what fucking mask I'm using right now. I think it's just one of the beanies.
You're using something. You're using the fucking. Remember, we're using their classic ones.
Am I?
Yeah, you're using the fucking one with like the mask on it. I mean the fucking the
I
one you used
need
in the picture.
ammo in a way. Oh god, I'm almost out.
If you want to throw them an ammo bag, you'd probably be safe to do it.
I want to wait until we're inside.
God damn, I am eating shit.
Art trade. Art trade.
What about art trade?
Art trade. Trade your shots for some bullets. Shells. Art trade. Headshot for shot.
We can open it.
Hey, fucker.
Ow.
I'm Flash.
Flash.
Oh my fucking eyes. I'm gonna fucking kill myself.
Alright.
Well, you only have 4
Matter of
cupcakes
time
left.
until we open this. I know, I don't want to waste any more cupcakes. Any more than I need to. Fuck, this takes forever to open. Okay. Terry,
Okay,
this is
Terry,
where
so,
the ammo bag with the thing is.
Here you go. You didn't want to bring a drill. I know Terry can just drill the fucking
Oh,
doors.
fuck me.
I already got it.
No, not these, Terry.
Oh wait,
Oh,
those
okay.
don't do it?
The-
Okay,
or-
it's just
or-
these
or-
little sections.
Yeah, these
You
two
might as
things
well
are
just
there, and then
Yeah, I saw that one. And then go nuts.
I'm gonna put the ammo down.
I'm
here.
noticing to the bus.
Tay, remember that opening scene, the Dark Knight?
Yeah.
Did you like that scene?
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Alright, just make sure.
Hey, I found some gold.
Okay, so remember that thing where I said it was safe? I lied. I am fucking scared. I'm just gonna probably go down. Fuck it.
Fuck, I don't have any aim.
It'll happen. I need your mom. Help me. Fucking may as well
You
just
have to
start.
go down first. Hey, rather than being useful, what are some other things you could have done there? Oh no.
There's a medic bag in there. It's right here. Damn, nice grenade.
I mean, it's kind of hard to fuck that up whenever they're just fucking bowling pins down there.
Everywhere.
Oh no, those are... No.
Jamal, you plebeian. Oh, well.
Hey, Dollar number 2 comes in. Oh, I'm going down. Okay.
He's down.
He's fucking punched me in the
This
face.
thing's open. Aren't you glad you waited on that ammo bag, Terry?
Oh, yeah. How are we taking all this out?
Bus.
So the room over, there's a bus.
So.
Where's the drive it out here?
I mean, you can drive vehicles in this game.
Why does Wolf have a hand brace him? It said.
That means he was told to wait.
You can do that?
Yeah,
Who did that?
I don't know. I really don't.
Corn, you glad I didn't say banana?
Corn.
Back up. Yeah, we're gonna wait for the wave to end, and we're gonna fucking pull him out. God, this game would have benefited from being able to lean, I guess, but it probably be overpowered.
Yeah. So I like how you fucking just bag up all that cash and just fucking out.
That's how the Aardvark do.
The normal bacon's at midnight. Alright, dude, we should start moving some of this.
Some of it's gold shit, I know that.
Yeah, dude, there's a
That's
shit.
Oh, yeah,
gold?
there was like 5 things of gold in there.
I must keep moving it slowly, keep moving it back and forth.
Alright.
Is it arbitrary?
Nope. Oh, that's not so bad.
Just in case. Set that there.
The last cupcake?
Yeah. Also, there's a dozer. I might need that cupcake already. There we go.
Yeah, there's 2 more bags worth here.
Shit, dude, this is not Gucci.
Dory, just take it slow. Just take it slow.
Why did it have to be on this side? Why couldn't it be on the fucking right side?
Seriously, we have all the fucking time.
The only one that's at a disadvantage here is me. Oh, I need to get in there. I wish I still had some of my cupcakes in here, but I don't.
Somebody should show me where the
It's fucking like it's through that thing and take up the stairs right over there.
I'm tossing a grenade.
Where are they?
being made.
Oh, goddamn. Are you done with ammo? Can I grab ammo from there?
Yep.
Alright, so the good thing about this escape is the AI doesn't know how to walk through the bus. So we could just toss the shit into the bus.
I'm keeping an eye on this stuff over here right now.
If you guys want me to just stay over here and you want to just drop it in the bus, that way, if you guys all go down,
We can at least escape with something.
I'm going down, but also I'm just gonna fucking go out here and fucking kill much as I can. Going down, turn around, Jamal. Thank you.
Me turning around.
somebody take Wolf. I don't need Wolf.
Jamal, let's just wait in here.
Yeah.
We're all everything ready. Nice in a nice pile.
Let's try to separate the gold with not gold.
A little bit bigger problems.
What's our bigger problem right now?
It was a bulldozer.
I
Wolf
can-
teleports in the safe. Ooh, sell me a taser. Where's gold?
This corner here.
That was
Okay.
You know that shit that you just picked up? Dickhead.
Yeah, that. Shit, dude. Dozer.
Oh,
Almost dead. Thank you.
don't worry, Wolf the fucking fortress with chaos emeralds.
He's just sitting there.
Okay.
I don't know. Don't know how you managed to get him to stay there, but I'm okay with that. He's aggroing all of them, so I'm okay. Flash trade. Got it. Come on.
See, the good thing is I have grinder. I'm matching with dudes left and right, and I get to suck a lot of penis. But in other words, to the video game, since I have grinder, I'm basically just absorbing health right now.
God damn, when is this gonna fucking end?
Neatly
I'm gonna start-
separated.
I'm gonna start taking hostages if I can.
I don't have that perk.
Hey guys, one. I two of them. Fucking blind. I'm just kind of assuming. Okay, I got both of them. Someone's spamming F. I just. I just want to imagine someone's.
Hey, you wanna give me a hand? Thank you.
Oh, one of them died. Shit. Okay, them there. They just peek around to shoot them.
Well, it's kind of hard to whenever they're fucking center crosshair.
I know, but where else am I gonna fucking?
I don't know. Wait a minute.
I'm just saying, they're just gonna make it so we have a longer way.
I'm gonna attack the
Sorry, Terry, for you to put like this being over there.
I mean, I'm doing a lot of shooting. I've killed like 60 fucking people. Just start dropping them. You can honestly just drop them in this.
Oh, alrighty then. Okay.
Just drop them in the room. Don't worry about going to the bus. Just drop them in the room. I'll take them.
Fuck, I missed that throw. I mean, now we have to do this live.
Live?
I'm saying is this is not gonna end.
But you just said now all we have to do is live.
No, I'm saying is now we have to do this live. Is what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
Fuck me.
It's like streaming with no AFK screens.
God damn, this fucking pistol's a goddamn godsend.
Oh, you fucker.
Oh no.
I'm sorry.
Oh shit, I need a fucking doctor bag.
Got him.
Here, oh, I don't have any. I have to do it safe.
I'm coming. Oh fuck, I brought the goddamn fucking bag with me.
It's fine. It was in danger.
I need shells, and some asshole picked up everything.
Here, I won't pick any
before
else.
I
Here,
did.
you grab some other. There's plenty of them over
I
there.
have nothing left. I can't. Well,
Fucking dozer's halfway into the fucking vault door. I can't shoot him.
Come on. Shot him in the knee. Thank you.
I can't fucking headshot him. He's inside the goddamn. Fuck you, Almir, you goddamn shitty developer. Fuck overkill. You cease to feel pain. It's the same dozer. Now he's dead, essentially. Yeah, he's dead now. Dozer's become one with that vault door. Is extra protected for her pleasure. Alright, I took the last of the ammo. It was a whopping 26 bullets.
Hey, they'll last. You just want to leave? I'll be honest.
I mean, we
Nope.
could.
Keep it coming.
Damn it.
Shit.
Shit, I gotta
Hi.
fucking kill your shield first.
Who's helping?
I got
me?
it.
Who the oh.
I'm in the
Hey.
window. Look at me.
I was like, who the fuck's helping me?
Oh man.
We've never had this much of a problem on this fucking heist.
Well, also, fucking Captain Winter's just like we were
Yeah.
about to probably end the wave, and Captain Winter's like, "Hey, I'm a cock."
Well, also they have a bunch of buffs, so
There's
Oh, yeah,
that
that's
too.
right.
Oh my god, dude.
I'm just relying on fucking dodge build at this point.
I'm just relying on like, oh, I get a kill. Oh, this guy dropped 2 shells. Oh, killed. Art trade.
Oh shit. Fuck me. I got an idea. Let's look at the cameras. Oh look, they're all taken out.
Okay, is the cabin opening? It's not really. Okay, I lied, but fuck it, I must pretend there was. Terry, there's some goodies down there if you want to grab them. Okay, this is about as close to ending. I'm gonna fucking start tossing things.
Just get them over here. I'll start putting them in.
I've never been so focused on payday in my life.
Honestly, I thought this was the one we were gonna end on.
I thought it was too. It might still be. You never know. We may still fail this.
I mean, I'm at the exit, so
I don't know if it works like that though. I don't know if it's like if it's one done.
we lost what's his name in the first one.
Yeah, but I don't think bots count.
No,
Unless you were
no.
referring to one
I
of
feel
us
like it
as
would
what's
say
his name.
something. If,
Jesus Christ, I want to see my fucking special account after this.
Assault rifle ammo. Assault rifle.
Assault rifle.
Very, very
Pick
quiet.
up a wheel
I'm
gun.
stealing guns.
dedicated.
Dedicated wham.
Only 5, and he's already talking about drive-bys.
He's only 5 years old and he's already talking about dedicated wham. Terry, how much dedicated wham does your computer have? Enough
8
to run
gigs.
payday? That's good.
I shot me a taser. I swear to God, I'm getting sick of hearing that.
It's a fucking medi.
I know we're gonna get sick of hearing that, but let's be honest. Is a cloaker nearby, you guys?
Don't forget, Wolf has the chaos entrance.
God, I have 3 shells.
I have 9
Some
bullets.
goodies, there's some goodies over here if you want them. There's also a cloaker though, he's guarding your goodies.
Bye, Wolf.
That was a solid.
Down. Help me.
Jamal, you have to get on my eyes. So
got it, I got it,
there you
I
go.
Run, my boy.
Art trade.
Wolf.
Art trade. Art
Stop
trade.
taunting.
Art trade.
This is saucy.
This is spicy.
Okay, it's not good. Jamal might need some
Oh, no.
assistance on here because Wolf's fucking.
Fuck Wolf. Look at all these fucking first aid kits and shit that I left on the other side of the fucking map.
I'm going down. I have Wolf to get me, don't worry. Oh, I'm black and white. Oh, they fit together. I think I'm actually gonna be the last one to use those shit. It's in my last use. I think it is.
I am out of ammo.
Oh, I see one more.
Can't do
Okay.
anything.
Don't worry, I haven't gone down since the last time, I don't think. Really wish I knew how many downs I still have left. Got one down!
You had one down. There you go.
I love how once we leave that main room, it just, all the fucking SWAT just fucking spill out. Like, our water broke and we just got a bunch of SWAT guys.
I have a shell.
Almost makes you.
Or
You guys want to fucking like slide down there and see if you can just take care of Captain Winters fast?
Nah, fuck it. Oh,
You sure I can
fucking
just- I can just-
holy hell, knockback.
You sure? If we just like make our way down there and taking care of us, we'll be able to take care of this thing.
Where's Captain Winters
At the very beginning.
at? You really think that's worth it?
No.
Because if we all go over there and we get fucked, like none of us
Honestly,
have
I
any
think this
grenades.
might be it. You guys want to just fuck off?
Yeah, I'd say fuck off. I'm black and white down here. Like, if you can inspire me up, I can try to run back and get that last doctor back.
Just come over here.
No,
First two, I
got it.
guess, too.
I mean, we got most of it.
Oh, hey there, Cole.
I am Mark. I'm keeping this fucking. We got most of it. We're good. We'll go with this.
I reckon we could probably go over and get another one.
Up to you. What do you think?
I'll fucking risk it.
Terry, you come up here and just keep.
I believe in my ability.
We need somebody at least to fucking be at home. So when Dad doesn't come back
I
home,
have
somebody
no
can take care of the
shells.
kids.
I'm out of ammo.
Alright, I'm probably fucked right now, actually. Fuck this. You know, I'm doing something stupid. Alright, not that way. Alright, I'm done. The fucking taser that came out of the elevator and shot me up is what caused me to die. Oh, what the fuck? Okay. Back to my original dumb idea.
They're
you
taking
going?
some of our shit.
Oh,
Jamal,
hey
they're
there.
pretty close to you.
Oh, no. Fucking, it's a bag of gold. God damn it, I'm so slow. Oh, hello, hello, hello. Hello, I see you. Hello there.
The bulldozers in that room. Be careful.
I'm so fucked. Okay, hello.
Ooh, my goodness. Ammo,
Oh my
ammo,
goodness. Oh my god.
Why don't you look at my health again?
I know.
Just grabbing the bags.
Oh fuck, I'm out of ammo. No.
Okay, Terry, just run to the exit.
Wait. I think Wolf can get me. Alright, yeah, we're fucking out of this zone. Because I am black and white now, and I only have
Jamal,
pistol
I have
ammo.
not been. Oh my god, I need to go play the lottery for this.
No, you used up your fucking luck.
Jamal,
Let's go.
did you see?
We're leaving.
I went around the entire way. We ran the entire way and
Alright.
dodged me.
There's
And...
so
getting outta
fucking
here.
much. Let's go back.
Terry, no, we gotta go.
No,
Terry, look at my
let's
health.
go. I'm
7
black and white now.
bags.
Terry,
There's
we gotta
so
go.
much. Oh,
We got
look
most
at
of
Terry.
it.
Oh shit! We got another fucking. We got another 2 fucking. Jesus. Oh, that's not too bad though. I'll be honest.
Fucking end this. Suspend.
Do you wanna
crime.
end it?
7.2. We have to just finish one. And we have to like fail one.
Let me look it up, rest.
We're making 41 million.
Great. Here's the loud modifiers we can get. Enemies cannot be staggered from damage, which is a strict
No.
no. The tasing knockout effect of the taser now knocks out a player for 50% faster. And then all FBI SWATs will be replaced by heavy SWATs.
Oh, don't do that one. That
I
would
guess
be
we're
a
going
no.
with the taser one because that's like the only one.
Sweet.
Fantastic.
Because I'm pretty sure that's a
Jamal
one.
Voorhees 12.
I mean, apparently you can just claim it on the top left.
Where?
apparently. So wait, can you just maybe? I don't know. Oh, it told me. 1 second.
There's no option.
probably
How
have
do
to
you
go back.
how do you cash out of times where you don't? Okay, apparently. Once again,
We just go until we fuck up. Because we have
1 second.
the 3
Lucky
options.
round.
We can either do Transport Harbor again, which we know how to do that one now, Breakout, or Scarface Mansion.
Well, first of all, there's achievements at claiming it for 50 and 100. So maybe I might as well look to 100 if we can. But
Yeah,
I'm trying to
fuck
look
it,
at
might
what
as well
I
just
need
happens.
to be going to bed. I need
What's
to be
that?
going to bed here soon. I'm gonna be real.
Oh, 1 second. Only if let's punch it to what happens if you lose? Let's see. A second.
Na-na-na-na-na-na-na.
So you can end it if you just leave. I guess you just leave. If we leave right now, I guess. Or wait, we don't know how you leave.
I only have the option to suspend. Oh wait, return to lobby.
Yeah, return to lobby. First of all, you can do that.
13 points away.
We can continue this. Remember that.
Yeah, I know, but I don't really know if I want
Or we
to
can
put
just-
myself through this torture again.
I mean, Terry has to go to bed. It's fucking almost 3 for him.
4.
It's
It smells stink bug.
Let's just end this, okay?
Alright, it's
it's in
probably
your
actually
vape.
toast.
Jamal, it's in your vape.
Don't fucking say that.
Okay, then you can. I think you can claim it by going to the top left.
Claim rewards, top right, dickhead.
I'm sorry. Guess we all can claim it.
Rewards.
Fucking, what is that stink bug smell? Get the fuck away from me. Is it on?
Or you want to claim your reward spree?
I feel creepy crawlies on me now.
So end your current lobby. You can call it and you will
Claim
have to start a new one and
rewards.
open your. So yeah,
Wow,
we're
I
currently
didn't
all claim
even get up
rewards.
to level 95. 96, sorry. What the fuck?
Yeah,
Where the
what-
goddamn shit is the fucking... Ugh. I hate this
What the
so
fuck
much.
happened? Confused. I accidentally left it. But what did it say in there?
Where are you, motherfucker?
Yeah, I left too, but I'm at 13 million, up from like
I don't
5,
even
4.
see my fucking rewards because I'm trying to find the fucking stink bug. I hate that smell so
And I got a
much.
shitload of
It
loot
smells like
cards
fucking
too.
vacuum.
How do you see the loot cards?
I don't
Did-
know. I think
did
we
it-
accidentally skipped them.
Oh, well, that's fine.
Ugh. God, it smells so bad.
Which I'm also. Did it show you all the cards you got?
What?
Like the cards. I'm confused now because I think me and Terry actually skipped through because it went through hit cancel.
Well, hold on. I'm currently trying to find stink bug in my room. Is it inside of my fan? It's not even on. Oh, I hate the smell. Fucking hold on. Fucking now it smells like goddamn stink bug and Glade Black Pearl Jam. Blackberry Jam, actually. Ugh. Alright, so I got my rewards. It shows me on my thing.
What would it show?
I don't know if we get the same thing.
No, but I'm saying did it like show you like what you got?
Yes, it gives me a list of it.
Okay,
I
that
got
could be a Scott thing,
2,060,000 experience. 8,240 spending cash, which is a lot less than I thought we were gonna get.
It's still a lot.
Yeah, I mean, then again, that's like, what, 3 Hoxton breakouts? Also, holy fuck. The smell of the goddamn air freshener is already dissipated, and I just fucking immediately smell stink bug again. It smells like it's right in front of me, but is it inside my microphone? Nope, okay.
Is that on your head?
I checked inside of my headset, but it's not in there.
Is it in your nose? It's just
not.
in your skin.
Don't even fucking say what I know you're about to say next.
Is it in your
Mouth?
Nickel.
Fuck you.
Michael?
I hope it isn't. I did leave the cap off by accident. Is there anything floating inside of this? Well, if there is, now it's dead.
Drunk as shit.
No, this is non-alcoholic Dayquil.
What the fuck's the point?
Nothing like getting buzzed off a Dayquil before you go to work. Oh, let's see. I
No,
got modifications, contractor silencer. Ooh, tipsy Santa. I got a few.
That was nice, I
patterns
enjoyed that.
And shit. That was fun, even though holy fuck, it was irritating.
I actually enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, it was fun playing again.
Yeah. Too bad I
Well,
thought
Terry
I was gonna
Thomas
get a
installed.
bunch of experience for that, and I only went up 2 levels.
Yeah.
That was kind of lame. Blah, blah, blah.
But now we can start the crime spree later.
Yeah.
Back to 87.
So I got 4 World War II cases apparently.
Wait, what? Inventory. I didn't get any cases.
Dude, did you leave the stove on?
What?
Yeah, let's make a mask to celebrate tonight. It's gonna be a new payday tradition of mine. Every time I stream, I'm gonna make some sort of a mask to commemorate the night.
I feel kind of sad that wait. You got 3 cases. You said
4.
like, cases like safes.
Yeah.
I
I don't believe you because you can only get 1 per fucking month or week. I thought. It's
Yeah,
very
no,
hard.
there's some safes on the marketplace. 3 cents a piece, so I figured I'd buy a couple.
How much?
Alright,
30
let's,
cents?
let's make a mask to commemorate tonight. I have no ugly colors to use right now. Like, I have a solid black and white, gray.
Okay, they're fucking. Oh, they're armor safe. That's why, because they're 3 cents. Oh, shit.
Yeah.
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 Let's make a fun mask. Did you leave the stove on, dude?
I don't get it. What's this meme?
You don't remember? Did you leave the stove on? Did my darling walk by?
Oh yeah, shit.
You don't remember every single time the game would crash, you just hear, "Did someone leave the stove on?"
Or did my darling eat a shit?
There you are. I think that's a good mask for tonight. Finalized
Oh,
mask.
that was fun.
Yes. Can I name it? What's today's date? 10/15/2017. There we go.
Oh sweet, uncommentated pen, or his name is. The no A button press. This upload 3D videos.
Yes. But that is the end of the stream. Thank you anybody who is probably watching, and enjoy your 8 a.m. class WAS, because I know you're still here. I see you on my viewer list, but you're probably asleep.
Alright, I'm going to bed.